you guys, you can speak over each other also. One of us will
Mm-hmm.
shut up if someone is speaking over the other, usually.
Mm-hmm.
Like I prefer whatever free flowing conversation as opposed to strictly
You want
regimented.
it to
So
be Robert Altman, basically.
yes, I wanted to be Robert.
जादू मंतर जादू मंतर जादू मंतर You are going into the future.
You talking to me?
Ain't always BBC clothing. என் பேர் மாணிக்கம் எனக்கு இன்னொரு பேர் இருக்கு
Talking to me?
Queen is dead.
Hello. Welcome to today's very special and I guess a return to podcasting episode for Queen is Dead. We've been absent for like a month, I think. We had planned a whole slate of episodes for Noir. None of them happened, I think, because all of us were busy doing other stuff and everything. But we'll try and fit those in the coming months in some ways, because I know Amartya especially has vested interest in that topic, and we had planned a bunch of interesting stuff, but we couldn't get to it. But we are reconvening today to discuss. I guess the talk of the town since May, whenever the film
March.
released
March.
in Cannes, I think, and we are going to be talking about Payal Kapadia's All We Imagine as Light, but we'll also be talking about her film making background a little bit, her film style, her short films, her first film. I think that's I think because everyone has sort of talked about All We Imagine is Light, I think we wanted to also include a fair amount of discussion on A Night of Knowing Nothing, which is her first film and fairly difficult to find. Once we start talking about it, I'll tell you where you can find it and for whom you can contact that. So if you
We are
are,
doing that again?
yes, we are doing that again.
I
And
had
as
to
you,
pull strings. I had to
yeah,
ask
yeah,
for favors.
exactly. So I have we've heard two voices already here, so I'll introduce them first. One of them I think is a familiar voice in Amartya.
Unfortunately for everybody, but Jojo.
Well, no, not really. You don't need to be that self-deprecating as of yet. The other voice you're hearing is of Prakhar. Should I say your last name, Prakhar? I don't generally introduce people with their last name. So if
No,
you
I mean,
want
it's
to,
fine.
okay, so this is Prakhar, and as I had mentioned before we started the recording, the best thing that Varun has ever done is to introduce me to Prakhar. Varun, we met on one of the episodes which has not been released by Varun because he's too ashamed of it, I guess. I don't know what the reason is. Anyways, Prakhar is, and I'm taking this intro that she has on poemsindia.substack.com, where she has written a review for All We Imagine is Light, which I will link in the description. But yeah,
Yes, please.
yes, her
And this was,
intro. Yeah, sorry, go ahead,
sorry,
Prakhar.
sorry. I watched All We Imagine in Mumbai. Mumbai is the place to watch the film. So,
Yes, and you can plug in your experience of Mami, which you've already slated throughout last year, where we had like the worst experience. So you can redeem it a little
no,
bit when
no,
you talk
I'm
about
just
it.
returning from IFI, so it can't be as bad.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Okay,
I have
we would
heard.
like
I,
to know
I have
more.
heard some horror stories. Is it really
Okay.
that bad?
Okay.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Sure, you get to
Introduce
it,
him.
yes. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
she is an independent cinema and culture researcher navigating the exciting intersection of academia and practice. Rama Mehta Writing Grant 2022, Geo Mami Young Critics Lab 2023, which is where Varun met Prakhar. You
Yes.
guys met in person also at Mami, right? So
Yeah.
her recent engagements include an IFA funded project on WCC, programming for Alt EFF 2024, Fazeli Films documentary projects, and contributing to the cut and print newsletter that all the guys from your Mami Young Critics Lab.
Some of
So,
them.
okay,
And
yes, yes,
yeah,
I
yeah, in the
know
final
which ones
edition,
don't. Sorry, I know.
yeah,
So,
some of
sorry,
them.
yeah.
Yeah. And
So
the
yeah,
last to the list is Critical Collective. I recently wrote for Critical.
sure. Okay. So whatever the resources or like the links are, I'll
Yeah.
put in the description for anyone who's interested in exploring them. We most definitely relating to this topic is the All We Imagine Is Light review, which also serves very well as an intro to who Payal Kapadia is a little bit. I think that helps. The other two people on this panel of packed people, we have so many people today, is Aryan, who's we should be doing like a reintroducing like subtitle here essentially, right? Where it's like Aryan from America or whatever. I don't
He's
know.
Wow,
he's the
right.
recurring guest at this
Yeah,
point.
he's the recurring guest who's been absent. He disappeared. Let's stick with the people
Yeah, yeah.
disappearing and
Ghost.
appearing out of everywhere.
Yeah. He's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
guest appearance, full on
Yes.
special guest appearance. Yes.
Yes. So Aryan, how has New York treated you
Yeah,
apart
I
from
mean,
the
it's good.
election?
Oh, are we going there?
No,
Yeah,
no, we are
but
not.
anyway,
We don't have to.
Yeah, we are not.
it's really
You
glad
can
that
link this. We might talk about it briefly in when we're talking about the night of knowing nothing, because
Hmm.
you
yeah.
can link whatever political upheaval and
Wow.
annoyance everywhere. Anyways, and the last person we have is Cris, who's now I'm removing from the token queer representation for Quid, and he's joining us for an episode on a filmmaker, which isn't. I think you can still do queer readings here if you want to, at least in one of them. But no, Cris, you can say hi. You can say whatever. You can say,
the
you
token
can
queer
say thank you for
representation is
not making me a queer token representative.
no, that is my joke that he's stealing. So
That's true.
Hmm.
that is plagiarism, my friends.
Sorry, I apologize. I forgot to
Also,
put the quotation marks. Yeah.
also saves Dhruv from cancellation now that Chris has claimed it. It's coming
Yes.
Oh, no,
from
we're
the
we're
person
we're
We
too
have
cut
himself.
in
been
the
trying
line.
very
He
hard
doesn't.
to be cancelled, by
Yeah.
the way.
He's
We
like
have
the-
been
We are trying
like
to get
That is on Amartya. That is
yes,
not
fully
anyone else.
we are at the level where we're just desperate to get any attention.
at this point.
Amartya and I
Yeah.
will be his like
Me and
subscribers.
Aryan are the token opposite of representation at this
We're
point.
we're
Who
making sure the
knows? Who
criteria is
knows where the discussion goes with all we night?
All we imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
we,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
not
All we
all we
imagine.
imagine. A
Night
night,
of
a
knowing
night,
nothing.
a night.
We can
Yeah.
imagine
So
all of it.
everything, every bit of politics from everyone will be revealed gradually.
No, the
I
question
suppose,
should be
so.
how far is Quid from becoming a manosphere podcast?
Not far
very
at all, to be
Not very
honest.
far.
Yeah.
We are trying though. We are trying to diversify. That's why we shut up for a month, right? Essentially, we were like
Yes,
too
yes.
tired of. I was too tired of listening to everyone's voice, whoever I was editing, who was a fellow man. Anyways, we'll move away from the shithousery, I suppose, because it serves no purpose here more than a few cheap laughs. But yeah, I think we'll begin the proper sort of thing by introducing, for people who are not familiar with Payal Kapadia. I read a really good, and I'm taking some bits and pieces of this biography from a piece on India Today by Sohani Singh. It's called Payal Kapadia, The Chronicler of Dreams, which sort of lists everything about her sensibility, how she got it from. I didn't know this, but I did this reading, and I think Prakhar also mentions the daughter of a famed artist called Nalini Malani, and a lot of Sohani Singh says a lot of Kapadia's aesthetic eye and tenderness for her characters comes from that upbringing itself. I think she's known for sort of getting into films from an early age, but then she wanted to go to FTII, which is the Film and Television Institute, which is in
Pune.
Pune. Yes. It's in Pune, and that features heavily in one of her films, especially, and it's a subject of discussion in that film a lot. What happens with its politics and like sort of whatever the history of cinema is, and sort of how she positions herself within that context, I think, is central to one of her big films. But I think her journey as a filmmaker is very interesting. She hadn't gotten into FTI. I think the first time she applied for an editing course, but then after 5 years working, she for a documentary filmmaker, she got into the direction batch. She spent 5 years in the institute making shorts and doing projects on filmmakers like Portugal's Miguel Gomez. If anyone's seen any film, I don't know. I don't
Who
think
His
I
I've
watched
film
seen
is
it.
Grand
out
Tour.
this year, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
Grand Tour is his film, which I was
Grand Tour
interested
is his
in.
film. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Have you
watched
seen?
it at Iffy. Iffy.
Iffy, okay.
Iffy.
Yeah.
Is it
Yes,
Iffy?
yeah, you can expand on that a little bit, Prakhar, if you want. How was your experience at Iffy? Iffy is the International Film Festival,
Of
right?
India.
Of India. Yeah,
Okay.
it happens in Goa every year, and
Yeah.
it's the
The
It's
new
a
festival,
festival.
we have someone hating. We are past mommy hatred, I suppose. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
For
but
years
my
I heard that it actually had good management, so I'm curious to know how they effed up this time.
so it was about everything apart from good cinema. So there was not enough emphasis on programming it as a film festival.
Okay.
It was a festival. Film is
Okay.
ठीक है. So
Okay.
काफी मेला माहौल, but
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, like every
Sure.
Indian, oh, like every Indian thingy ever. Oh, okay, ठीक है.
Okay.
हाँ.
Okay.
Matlab,
But
Living up to its
if you have
name.
gone to any Kolkata, if you have gone to the Kolkata Book Festival at this point, it's
Mhm.
not about books anymore. So it's like, ठीक है. At
Okay.
this
Yeah, but
point,
that's the criticism a friend gave of JLF as well. In the past few years,
Hmm.
yeah.
JLF also has become a very festival space rather than about being the literature and the
About
books.
books,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Sure. Okay.
It's
Understood.
more
I mean,
about taking the
is it
books.
more of
It's
a
more about
commercial space
taking the
now?
books and taking a
Ha
selfie.
ha. Yeah,
Commercial
yeah,
and networking
Yeah.
space, is it?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a nightmare to me, especially who's not fond of crowds. So,
Like
anyways,
I have gotten photos of critics who are like mingling and everything, nicely,
At
nicely
IFE.
have. Yeah.
Ha, so there's Film Bazaar. Everybody goes there for
Full.
networking. I'm not dissing the festival
Yeah,
completely,
fully.
yeah,
but there's a evident shift in focus.
Yeah.
sure.
100%.
Interesting. But, anyways, going back to her Payal Kapadia's work, she did projects on Miguel Gomez and this filmmaker who I will be mentioning repeatedly
We
in
have
this
to.
episode, Thailand's Apichatpong Weerasethakul.
It's like a rumble from the core of the earth. Bang! And then it shrinks.
I'll just start from here and then we can sort of talk briefly about her short films, then segue directly into A Night of Knowing Nothing. But today is the day where I think I'll not do this anymore, I think, with any filmmaker. But there's a mystique a filmmaker has, right? There's this thing where you kind of get them, but you kind of don't. And then it feels like one film you watch, you're like, oh, I get what you are. But then another film you watch, I'm like, oh, no, yeah, you shifted somewhere. Like, it's exciting. And I watched the short films and I was just like, this is like her short films are very accomplished in a filmmaking sense, but to me they're so lifted almost exactly from Apichatpong Weerasethakul aesthetic that for me I was like, oh, I thought you were like, I guess my impression became simplified, if that's a better way to put it. I was like, and what the aesthetic for people who have not seen the Apichatpong films is a lot to do with, I think, gentle surrealism in the sense that, or magical realism, you can put it in both ways, where it's, the narrative has a hushed quality to it in terms of how people speak, how, just in terms of how she shoots things, there's a quietness and a sort of emphasis on non-diegetic sound a fair bit. A great. I think she's incredible with sound design. But
Oh yeah. She's amazing.
but there is, I've watched 3 of her short films, and there are 5. So of course my impression will change, and I like them to certain degrees. So it was Watermelon Fish and Half
I am
Ghost.
trying not to react to the message that Aryan just sent because he
I didn't read
clearly
it, but I'm
wants,
reading
for
from
that
notes.
reaction.
he clearly wants me to lose my goddamn temper.
Yeah.
I wish this was like one of those live stream moments, but anyways,
Yeah,
magical
just trying to
realism.
get a reaction out of
Yes,
us.
Aryan mentions Anand L. Rai also in the same capacity as
In the same
Apichatpong
capacity, yes.
Weerasethakul and
Yes.
Payal Kapadia.
And Payal
But
Kapadia.
I think
This
that's
is almost as
stretching it a bit
offensive. This
too
is
far.
almost as offensive as the Indian jury sending Lapata ladies instead of all we imagine as
Eh,
almost.
I mean,
nah,
I don't think
It's
it's
not
offensive.
worse.
No, it's not
No,
that
it's not
bad.
offensive. It would have been offensive if they sent like animal.
If they had sent animal, yes, which they wanted
Or
to. by the way.
Chota Bheem.
Or Chota
Because
Bheem.
that was
Yes.
on the list.
Yes. Anyways,
Oh God, yeah.
the short films are Watermelon Fish and Half Ghost, which was 2014. Then the next one was Last Mango. Is
The
it Last or Lost?
Last mango of
Last
monsoon.
Mango Before the Monsoon, which is
Before the monsoon, 2015,
and
yeah.
Afternoon Clouds, which is 2017. There's 2 more things she's made after that, which I couldn't get to, which is
The
And What Is Summer
2018 one
Saying?
is, I think,
And What Is Summer
and
Saying?
what? Yeah,
Huh.
what
And the
Summer saying, yeah.
5th one I have here is Between Day and Night, which is available on Vimeo on Ranabir Das, who's her
Who's a
partner, I think,
cinematographer? Yeah, cinematographer.
and
Yeah.
collaborator for
Yeah.
all these projects. I think because they met in FTI, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I watched all of them, and my other thing was these are not Apichatpong like that, they are Apichatpong light, and I think that's a bit of a disappointment for me, in the sense that I don't like filmmakers
Can I
reminding me so
can
much
I
of these
interject here?
filmmakers. Yes,
Can
yes,
I
please do.
interject here slightly?
Yeah.
I don't think Afternoon Clouds is that inspired, to be
Oh,
very
I think it's wholly down to
no,
that.
no.
But
I
anyways,
think there are certain frames which definitely
Mhm.
remind me of that. Okay,
yeah.
I genuinely think so. But
Also, just to caveat, I have done a whole binge of Abhijit Pong's work last year, so
yeah,
that
yeah.
might also be feeding into my response, where
Mhm.
I'm like,
Projecting a lot of
I
it.
don't want to. No, no, there's no projection. If you've seen his films, there's like
No, you
so
can.
Oh
clear
yeah,
a
there
Yeah,
visual
yeah,
has
yeah.
No, no.
correlation
It's
like
there.
like
for me, I
Hmm.
was like projecting Edward Yang's
Yes,
yes,
sensibilities
I
yes.
into
think
that
her
because
feature films
it's
are diverge in
Mhm.
directions which are more interesting to me than
No,
her
but
short
that's
films.
Yeah,
also no, but
definitely.
that's also the sort of, I won't say defense. I'm just saying,
Hmm.
was just saying कि since all these are short films she did while she was studying at FTII,
Mhm.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
entirely possible that because you are doing something like this, you are finding your voice. It's
Yes.
Mm.
entirely possible कि inspiration से she's doing this.
Yeah.
And it's also entirely possible that when she's making those movies, she is calling back heavily to Veerasathakul's,
We can call
entire
him
aesthetic.
Joe. That's what is
Yeah,
easier if it goes
Veerasathakul's
like, yeah, yeah,
entire aesthetic, to the extent that some of it feels lifted up. Again, I
yeah,
would like to call them respectful ripoffs, because
yeah.
I am
No, they are
calling them respectful
respectful,
ripoff. I am
and to
calling
be
them respectful ripoffs very
yeah,
specifically
yeah.
because
Huh.
if there were no other films beyond the first five films, I would have lambasted all these. The
Mm,
thing
Mhm.
is, we have two features to look forward to after
yes,
Yeah.
that, which are almost original. A Night of
yeah.
Knowing Nothing is definitely original.
All we
So
imagine
Mhm.
has light has
All We Imagine Is
echoes of
Light is
Apichat
also,
Pong as
yes,
it goes along. I think.
as it goes along. But
Yes.
so since we have those two movies, I can definitely call them, because she finally finds her own voice.
No, and I think there's a definite, and I know, like, for me, it's a very specific complaint in my thing that
Mhm.
it's my fault also that because I'd seen the features first, you create an impression of a
Yeah,
filmmaker
yeah,
being
yeah.
very diverse in how they tackle stuff, and then when I went back and watched these, I was like, too this is too indebted to a certain style, which I'm like, when it becomes too indebted, the thing is, whenever I was seeing her films, I was seeing Apichat Pong also making the same films in
But
different
I
sort of
I I
languages. But
really
yeah, go
feel
ahead, go
that
ahead.
your exploration or your sort of binging or
Hmm.
dive into Joe or Apichatpong's
Yeah,
Pong's work,
yeah,
it significantly has an impact on that because
sure.
my introduction to Kapadia is when she gets nominated. So I've
Hmm.
heard her name, but the film gets nominated.
This is A Night
And
of Knowing Nothing or All We
no, no,
Imagine?
no, All We
All We
Imagine.
Imagine. Okay,
Hmm,
okay.
hmm,
So
hmm.
Hmm.
before that, I'd known that she's made this, and but
Hmm.
then All We Imagine is where her name sort of almost begins to become a household thing
Yes.
because yeah, the
In
lore of
the
the film as
indie
well.
space, let's just
In
also
the
like
indie space,
star
at
that.
least,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah, yeah.
Um, and
Because
then what
sorry,
happens
because
is,
I'll call on Chris later and then ask him for the reaction his parents gave to, well, his mom gave to
uh,
this
Uh-huh.
All
oh,
We Imagine is nice.
you took your
I
mom
And
to
took
All
my
We.
parents for it, who are
Oh
both
wow.
Mallu cinesnobs, and they
Hmm.
had very interesting reactions to it.
Oh yeah,
yes.
so my friends who are from Kerala and especially in film school, they also
Hmm.
had a very interesting reaction to it. But I'll
Sure,
come to that
we'll
later.
share those. I think those are
Yeah.
interesting.
So what happens is then yes, I now begin to follow her work a little bit because I've been working in the space of women in cinema. So
Hmm.
she naturally becomes a very interesting subject to me. And
Hmm.
then parallelly the conversation around the film is going. I know I'll catch it very late. So I'm trying to
Hmm.
avoid a lot of
Spoilers and
spoilers
everything.
and all of that.
Hmm.
And then I finally get a chance to watch it at Mami. And then
Hmm.
I backtrack to her work because I had to write about it.
Sure.
And when I'm doing that, so it's almost entering as I think a lot of people would because
Yeah.
All We Imagine is going to be the gateway to her work
Sure.
now
Yes,
Yeah.
of
for a
course.
lot of people.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And now that you've seen a version of her voice that's almost there, or
Hmm.
that's the most recent version of her voice,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
then you begin to see the ones that came before and before and before,
Yeah.
more than and when you reach her student film stage, you can almost see as I forgot Aditya Raj's real name.
I'm not
Amartya.
Aditya Raj, first of all. Thank
Sorry,
you very
this
much.
this confusion
To
is
be
because of
fair,
Amartya.
let me remind you. To be fair, my nephew is going to get a lot of shout outs because of this. But anyway, doesn't matter. Uh, yeah. Anyway, so it's
Amartya.
Amartya. Don't worry about it.
Amartya,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
So as you were saying,
Hmm.
okay, when you look at it as student films, it kind of makes sense why they look
Yeah.
what they look like, because I reflected on a lot of my student work,
Hmm.
heavily influenced and inspired by the
Yeah.
people that I were reading.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sentence structure, similar arguments.
Hmm.
But then it also, it's a wonderful journey into seeing how that expands into her own
Yeah,
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah.
and you
So
can, to be
that's
very honest, and to like give credit to her also, there is definitely, I think, I don't want to say so. So I saw the three films. I think the first film feels like someone who has seen a Apichatpong and Weerasethakul cinema, but not fully grasped how it works. And I think the second and third films, I think, start getting at grasping it. You can sense it because a lot of these films are about silences, about mysteries being evoked as opposed to being told to you. So it's
हाँ.
like that confidence in her voice is definitely there, and she's a impeccable
And
visual
my
and
So
audio
it's
stylist. So
the litmus as a viewer have developed for, as Amartya again put it,
yeah.
respectful ripoffs is
Mm,
if it's a ripoff, then and if they fail to add any other layer to it, it's
yeah.
just a visual gimmick because you can
Yes.
create that style or maybe you can create
Yeah.
that tone a little bit.
Yeah.
And film after film, or even in the film itself, scene after scene, you get nothing more.
Yeah.
Then it's something that's to be discarded. It's
Yeah.
just a ripoff.
Yeah.
But if
I
it
was.
just
I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Please finish. Then I'm.
I was just saying that, but with Pyle's work, you can see those layers being added to it,
Yeah.
scene after scene, film after film. So
Yeah.
that's
I'm reminded
yeah.
of two American filmmakers who are
Mm,
Mhm.
vastly famous, who are also very old,
mm.
and one of them recently had a film released this year, which we had a lot of fun discussions about. So
Megalopolis.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
both Francis Ford Coppola and Martin Scorsese,
Mm,
for their student films, quote unquote, but not student films, but getting into the industry, both of them worked under Roger Corman.
yeah.
Under Roger Corman, the two movies both of them made, I distinctly can't remember Coppola's movie, but it was definitely a horror movie.
Sure.
Mhm.
And Scorsese made Boxcar Bertha.
Mm.
Now, none of those were our gateways to both Scorsese
Of
and
course.
Coppola, right? Because
Yeah.
we got into them through our most celebrated works. But if
Yeah.
you go
Mhm.
back and
Yeah.
if you look at those two movies,
Hmm.
you might see inklings of their voices, but those are
Yeah.
just inklings because
Yeah.
they are still developing it.
Yeah.
Scorsese, I think, was developing it a lot quicker because he was already making those documentaries he made with his parents. So Italian
Yes.
American style and everything, those were
Yeah.
already coming out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the entire point being, it also shows the justification of somebody. If you are a quote unquote cinephile, or if you are
Mm.
a film student, or if you are whatever, you have some interest in film, this gives a justification to explore a director's entire filmography just to see how his voice encapsulates.
Yeah, yeah, of
Mhm.
course. No, no, it's definitely no. I don't want to blame the film. I hope I'm placing the blame more on me here, for having like that impression uh, of her films from whatever I've seen, and I think it's better to go like in a graph which goes, for me at least, goes in a way where you start appreciating them more as opposed
Mhm.
to their contributions
Full
becoming
flip flop.
narrow-fied,
Yeah, yeah,
essentially,
yeah,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, yeah.
So this is clearly there's clearly, she knows how to expand a shots in, I feel her shots can actually turn into interesting features also if she
Yeah.
decides to lean into them
Like
in
not
that
every
in
filmmaker
that
like
realm.
not every filmmaker is Nolan, right? Not every filmmaker is Nolan whose
Where is
first short
Nolan
film,
here?
no, whose first short film
Okay,
codified his entire voice anyway.
sure, sure, sure,
Doodlebug
sure,
Mhm.
itself codified who he is.
sure.
If you look at following, it further codified what his themes are going to be throughout.
Yeah.
So not every filmmaker is like that. Even the
I think
greats
that
weren't like that.
I think if you see her short films, you can clearly see some themes that sort of
Yeah,
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 recur
yeah, that's a
100%.
throughout.
hundred. But it does not codify in the single thing.
No, no,
It's
not at
Yeah.
all. So I
sporadic,
mean, just
scattered
to,
around.
yeah, and I think some of the themes that we are going to sort of be talking about in these two particular films, uh, I think impermanence, I think mentioned by a
Mhm.
lot of people in the write-ups. I read all of yours. So on
I think
All We
that's also
Imagine is
because
Light.
I think Kapadia herself mentioned impermanence with regards to the color of blue. I think in
Sure.
All We Imagine as Light.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the impermanence definitely there's a concept of animism which relates to
Yes.
Apichatpong also, in the sense that whatever is human is very much linked to the non-human sort of spiritual world, and it like there's a very permeable boundary between those. So it feels like the real and the surreal are very much almost a breath away from each other. Like you don't have to cross for example, in a David Lynch film, you don't have to cross a room to enter that. You can
Or
sort
go
of, if
through a
you
box
if
or
you
to enter
listen,
that.
go through a
Yes.
box. If you listen to the wind blowing in a way
Yeah.
which is harmonious, I suppose, or like, soothing,
Hmm.
there is an echo of something to be found in that. So it's like
Which
going
also
very
explains
yeah.
her
Go ahead,
her
sorry,
use
Aryan.
of which also explains her use of like extraordinary use of diegetic sound in her
Yeah,
films,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
especially
absolutely.
in All We Imagine Is Light, because like, and also the one thing that this conversation of ours is like evoking in me is that
Hmm.
it's also like kind of hypocritical on our parts as cinephiles that the moment we see a young indie filmmaker make their short films and like even like documentary like
Hmm.
earlier films enter like film festival circuits, we project the inspirations we have had and then we just imagine like no puns, but
Yes.
we
Yeah.
just assume that it's like just because it's emulating a particular famous indie filmmaker's vibe,
Hmm.
it's a ripoff. And
Hmm.
then you just like, and then you only celebrate their success once you find that, oh, now they have found their voice. Now
Yeah.
Hmm.
let me
Yeah.
just get back to, which is, we've all done that because we
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
don't have enough time.
But
We
it's
don't.
it's just that films coming from a certain part of the world and
Hmm.
made by a
Mhm.
certain somebody always have a
Yeah,
little more to prove. So if
Yeah.
of
it's the
course, exactly.
East,
Yeah,
if it's the third world, they have a
Hmm.
little more to prove. That
Yeah.
exactly.
the
Yeah.
biggest question is how can you use the language of Western indie,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
that even to adopt that form is becomes a point of contention or criticism. That
Yeah.
I
it
mean,
then it
Definitely, definitely.
famously, All We Imagine as Light won't go to the Oscars because it isn't Indian enough.
yeah
I think we can.
yeah
There's a good opportunity to bring that in, and then we can dive into our films, because I think one of the things which I feared when I watched this in
Mind you, I shared your
May
fear.
because of a screener
Yeah,
was
mind you.
Mhm.
because I was like, this just because
Yeah,
her
yeah.
films, before I had watched sort of her short films and sort of got more inkling of her inspirations being closer to a Pong. The other inspirations
Mhm.
that struck me when I watched, for example, All We Imagine Is Light or A Night of Knowing Nothing is of 70s French cinema, or um,
Mhm.
especially if people are aware of Marguerite Duras or Chantal Akerman, she's mentioned
hmm
in her Criterion stuff, especially,
hmm
and who's a favorite of mine in whatever I've seen. So
Of course
it's.
she is.
I mean, what does that mean? That has a very derisive
Nothing,
tone to it.
nothing. आप बोलो
No, no,
क्या
I
है?
want to know what's derisive about what's this Chantal Ackerman's
कोई
spikiness
डेरिशन
that
नहीं
come
है
in.
regarding the filmmaker sir. डेरिशन
Oh,
आप
you
पे है,
didn't
but चलो.
according for my
हाँ,
choice. I
yes, yes.
like like very depressing cinema.
You
That's why.
like depressing stuff,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah
anyway,
mean, yeah, I don't disagree.
yes.
But no, I think those were the inspirations that struck me, and then to me, it was interesting that her films have an aesthetic which I don't think would appeal to the Oscars. Like I thought, that's what I messaged. I was saying that there is no surprise to me that this will not be sent as an Oscar submission, because
Exactly.
this feels like more of a Cannes film, whatever that implication is. That
yeah
it's
yeah
a,
yeah
it
yeah
has more of a European appeal to it as opposed to an American appeal, and a more art, like it is an art
It
housey
is
film.
quote unquote art house, but again,
I don't think
yes,
that's it, but I don't want to make it sound like a
no
negative. Is
but
my thing. Yeah.
before we jump into reactions, I really want to know what Chris's parents thought.
That's for All We Imagine
And
Is Light.
now,
They've
yeah,
that's
not
for
when we
All
seen
We
get
Imagine as Light. Yes.
they've not
imagine
seen
is
A Night
like,
of Knowing Nothing.
yeah,
Yeah.
Ah,
but like
okay.
for me, the more interesting question is not about its appeal to the Oscars as a whole, but to the Indian committee. I think
What
that
does
is
Oh
the
Indian
big.
yeah.
cinema mean? Sort of like that.
Yeah, what does Indian cinema mean? I mean, I
Hmm.
remember like we were talking about adapting Western aesthetics. We had this when
Hmm.
I had the very funny
I was
incident
about to
of
mention. Yes, yes. Go ahead. You are
Oh
most welcome
God,
to
I have
lambaste
some
your
this
idea where
is
this is
reputation for
going. Yes,
everyone. Please go ahead.
yes.
Yeah.
this is I am publicly shaming myself in this, but I watched I watched Pather Panchali recently
Hmm. Hmm.
for a course I'm taking. I took on Cinemas of India, and I didn't respond. I thought it was great, but I didn't.
Waiting for the bombshell to drop.
Okay,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
will give it in the opening itself, but because Amartya has already publicly shamed me for this, but the context was that this was around my birthday, so I like watching films that I love. So I watched Tismar Khan the day before, and I rated it 5 stars on Letterboxd. I watched Aidil Hai Mushkil the day after, and I rated it 4.5 stars, and I rated Pathir Panchali 3.5. That was what my diary showed. So the
It's
point
like
is,
somebody throwing little boy. It's like somebody throwing little boy on Nagasaki. It's
No,
like it's
it's
almost
like
that.
somebody's brain cells dying one by one.
Yes,
तीसरा खान
exactly.
देखा एक मर गया, दो
एक
मर
मर
गए,
गया.
तीसरा
Which
इसमें
तीसमार खान
also
एक नहीं
explains why
मारेगा.
it happened
तीसमार
around
खान
a
एक
birthday.
सेक्शन हेमिस्फीयर मार देगा. तीसमार खान एक हेमिस्फीयर मार देगा ब्रेन सेल्स का.
Chris, I'm sorry.
no,
I
you
don't
have
have.
also
I have no. I am
no,
not going
no.
to. What else do I say? मुझे तो हर एपिसोड में गाली मिलती है. So I can't say
I mean, you
anything.
did that entire stream where you talked about Ismar Khan after
In conjunction
whatever.
with a Powell and
But
Pressburger film. So I am also prone to this, but it's okay. It's okay. We are
no,
talking
so
The
about
shit and the sublime. That's what we are.
the shit and the
Right?
sublime.
no,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
the point is, at this point, like Ray has, or being maybe because Bengali cinema, which has been so long,
Yeah.
he's been in a sense, been accepted. Okay, this is at this point,
I
it's
think
good.
there are
But
in academia you'll find many contentions against Ray from
Yeah, yeah.
film scholars
I
who are
mean,
into Indian
it
cinema
yeah,
about
it
his,
depends because in my spaces, it's not even like debatable.
yeah,
It's just Ray fandom throughout, like
sure,
throughout the thing. So it depends on the space that you're in as well. But
sure.
the point
And
is
just to
that
also asterisk, not to self-promote, but we have an episode on Ray,
The
also
Calcutta
Ray's
trilogy.
Calcutta trilogy.
Yes,
But
yes.
I think what the interesting thing that was brought up in that was that his aesthetic is very variable with each film. It's not stuck up on one thing.
yeah,
And
but that's also the
yeah,
same thing we're saying, right? Like Pathir Panchali starts very derivative of Italian neorealism, and then he sort of evolves after that, as
yeah.
we are talking
It's
about with
it's
Kapadia.
heavily influenced by Renoir also, if I'm not mistaken.
His cinema has very Western influences.
Yeah,
Yes,
There's no
yes.
question
again, and
about it.
the biggest criticism he gets it that his style panders to a certain kind of
Western,
audience.
yes,
It panders, and not
Because
just
he was
Western,
also
the
like,
festival
again,
audience.
yes,
he
Again,
was also like actively hanging out, quote unquote, with
yes.
those
and
directors and films.
while
So it's
while
all,
I get that,
yeah.
yeah, while I get that criticism, I don't
Mhm.
see it necessarily as a problem. Same criticism is
Exactly.
thrown at
With
Payal
Kapadia.
Kapadia, where
Hmm.
it's like she panders to a certain kind of language, certain kind of
Yeah,
making a
but
film that gets us.
isn't every
But
type of film pandering to one
See,
type of
my point
see,
is, when
yeah.
you know the game, why not? When you know the game, why not play it?
Also,
yeah,
if your
That,
pandering
that's
is
and
good,
you're good
also
at
if
your
your
game,
pandering is
so
good, what is the
yeah.
problem?
That's the
huh?
thing. I feel no. I think my argument when this whole controversy had broken out, I was like, let's just not limit Indian cinema to one thing. Like, let's just celebrate the fact that you can have
No,
uh,
but if you
all we
define
imagine is light.
what that one thing is, then I will
I
gladly
guess
accept your
that'll
argument.
be
But
the sort of no. I guess for people who will sort of go to all we imagine as light and have a reaction as Chris's mother
No, no,
had.
but
Like
there's also a basic problem. I won't like to call it a problem because that will be like limiting an entire audience on like 90% of the Indian film making or film going audience. But it's like
mhm.
the audience itself thinks that watching a film is equal to entertainment, which is categorically not always true.
yeah,
For some, watching a film is essentially not just seeking entertainment. For some, watching a film is watching like an art piece or watching something which is more akin to reading, watching
yeah,
something to get enlightened by or whatever it is. Because at the end of the day, it's an art form. It doesn't
yeah.
necessarily have to follow all the traditional contours of entertainment.
Yeah,
You know,
there's probably a link between
yeah.
being entertained by being intellectually or emotionally stimulated as opposed to being
Yeah, yeah.
emotionally assault. I know assaulted is like a negative pejorative here, but like
In
the
this case,
idea
not
of
really.
entertainment would be like in Indian cinema, and I think for me one of the issues with something like and my only knock against Lapata Ladies is that I don't think it's a good mainstream film. Like to me it doesn't work in the grammar of mainstream filmmaking. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
Kiran Rao exactly knows how to nail that
I don't hate it
that
as much
style.
as you do.
I don't
I don't.
hate it. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that's a particular thing that I have an issue. Like 'cause she is an
Yeah,
art
yeah.
house filmmaker. I think Dhobi Ghat is a much more assured film from her because it feels very much that she knows what she's doing. And here, I think whatever mainstream elements she puts are tacked on to me. Like to me, it feels like they're playing down as opposed to
Maybe because they
they're
are.
sort of realizing.
Maybe
But
because they are.
I don't
then
think so.
again,
But anyways,
if it were if it were the kind of mainstream film that you are expecting it to be, it would not be the one that gets sent to Oscar. So it has to be somewhere
The
in the middle. It can't
the
be All We
thing
Imagine,
is,
and it can't be that.
middle
the
cinema,
thing
no,
is that
very
whether
much. Yeah.
it's mainstream or art house enough is like it's coming out of people like us who are like Indians who have watched our cinema grow and evolve over the decades and years.
Mm.
But what I think it is ultimately about is that in the West, when you look at these markets over here, the way they function, for them it is as much about the strike rate of selling an idea, and that idea, the more homogenized it is,
Hmm.
and the more generalized it is, the better for their
Yeah.
market and everything, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's what it all
But
comes down to. Like
but
all we
Aryan,
imagine is like, oh no, wasn't like I thought Indian cinema is like a certain way. This
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
click
it's got
with me.
songs and
It's not
dances like that, like
exactly.
yeah,
It's
basically.
yeah,
not
yeah. But Aryan,
homogenizing enough. Oh, it's
isn't
like
that yeah? But Aryan, isn't that how literally every market regarding film functions
Perceptions
anyway?
and all work like this,
Yeah,
only,
of
right?
course,
I mean, again,
Labeling,
that's
yeah.
yeah.
where
because it's all Western. The slant is
Good.
towards the
Basically,
Western markets. That's why. And then it's that's the thing. Like in India now, it's only now that we are seeing the confluence of these homogenized notions seep into our culture because of like open markets and like films being
Yeah.
sent here and there and like international distributors and everything like Netflix and
Streaming
whatever.
services, everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, but
Exactly. So
that's where
now,
I kind of disagree with Amartya in a certain sense
Hmm.
because it's also a very sensibility thing because again, my parents come from Kerala and
Mm-hmm.
there you have this art
That is
cinema
true.
exactly.
almost
It
This
because
is
is.
like my
actually
parents
true.
are
Yeah, yeah.
That's it.
big Adur Gopalakrishnan fans. You know,
Hmm.
they come from that type of sensibility.
And just
And the
to sort
fact
of asterisk, just like the one inspiration which I think Amartya had mentioned before when he was talking about afternoon clouds was
Non-pakal Nerathu Manakam. Yeah, yeah,
Nirtha
yeah.
which is a
Maitham,
Lilo
absolutely.
Jose
Yeah.
Pellissieri film, which we've
Yeah.
consistently discussed
Afternoon
about
Correct.
8
Clouds.
or 4 times.
While I was watching Afternoon Clouds, I thought I was heavily reminded of Nanpakal
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
Mm.
I read
that's
someone
Absolutely.
mention Malayalam cinema as the French cinema of India, and I was like, that's quite an interesting.
See,
I
No,
mean
so
it's
so the thing
logical also in a way if you
Mm,
think about it.
Yeah, so in
yeah,
that sense, my parents come from that sensibility, and the
yeah,
fact that one of them liked it and the other one absolutely despised it
yeah,
is a very
Mhm.
interesting thing because for my
yeah.
parents, entertainment is not the definition of cinema.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I have a question for you. So if you think about
And we
it,
go to a night of knowing nothing after this, just
yeah,
to.
yeah. If you think about it, the
Mm.
fact that both of your parents had a divisive reaction, the one reaction which is negative, is it because it's way too similar to many Malayalam movies?
No, not at
I
all.
don't think
I
so.
don't think
Okay,
she drew that comparison at all. I think for
okay.
her, it fell into that sort of pretentious art cinema thing. It didn't
I,
feel
Ah,
Oh
like
yeah, a friend of
authentic art
mine also
cinema.
understood.
had that
I
Understood. Yeah,
think
yeah.
reaction.
there's a
Yeah.
spectrum, or if you want to, I mean, again, I like to think of it as a spectrum where it's like there's like genre. I think this would have worked better if it was video. But anyways, if there's on the left hand side there's sort of your mainstream genre cinema. On the
Mm.
right hand side you'll have your art galleries. I think and in the middle you have middle cinema, which sort of combines the two sensibilities.
Mm.
Malayalam cinema and probably what they are trying to do exists somewhere between the middle cinema and the art
Yeah.
gallery, but within that there is more division. There's
Yeah,
like an
there is more
independent
divisions.
cinema
Yeah, yeah.
bracket, and like there's something between an independent film and an art gallery piece, which is
Hmm.
somewhere I think where Payal Kapadia's films can function because it's the sort of Apichatpong thing also. He's done art
I
galleries
think
literally and video
I think there is
installations and
also a
everything.
fascinating comparison we can make, and we will go to A Night of Knowing Nothing. I'm sorry, I know we
Yes,
are
yes. No,
spending a
go ahead,
lot
go
of
ahead.
time here on this, but
No, I
it's
think it's
all
good. Go
it's
ahead.
also the fact that I was recently reading a criticism, which, mind you, I think I kind of agree.
Okay,
The criticism on Chaitanya Tamane is that
Mhm.
sure.
the quote and the disciple. Now,
Hmm.
Mhm.
I know very well that all of us, almost all of us at QID, loved the disciple.
Hmm.
So but there was a good criticism, and acknowledge some of the criticism कि Tamane's filmmaking feels more like a filmmaker very much focused on form to the
Yeah.
extent that those sections of the movie where the bikes, the slow motion shots with the tape recorder playing in the background and all of it, to the extent that those feel more like gimmicks than providing any sort of emotional
Yeah.
poignancy.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Which
going to have to rewatch it, but I think I have a counter for that. But anyways,
no, even I had a
Yeah.
counter for that, but I'm
yeah,
like, but if you think about, if I compare both, say Tamane's two films and Kapadia's two films,
yeah.
the only comparison I think I can make is with Disciple and All We Imagine As Light, because both
Hmm.
of them at the very least have a sort of similar sensibility. Sort of. It's not really there, but you can get some of the, especially regarding the
I
pacing and the tonality.
I feel I don't know if I should evoke this, but it's a very pretentious art house comparison. But I will.
No,
So
it's fine. It's fine. That's,
no, I think it's the difference for me between Apichatpong sensibility
yeah, with
and Haneka's or
Hanekas.
Michelangelo Antonioni even. So you've got an Italian filmmaker who creates a world which is airtight, which feels suffocating, which feels alienating, and I think with Apichatpong and Apichatpong rhymes a lot with the Payal Kapadia thing for me is that they are creating spaces in which they are hoping for connections to exist. They
Yes.
are hoping for a world or creating worlds in which worlds are more fluid as opposed to static or hermetically sealed. So that's the I think tension between these two filmmakers, also Chaitanya Tamhane and your Payal Kapadia. I think they are different in that sense, which is why the aesthetics also I think differ.
Yeah.
I know
No,
a
but
lot of people don't like the hermetically sealed, very tightly packed. It's more European
I do.
than anything
I
else. So,
actually do.
anyways,
I actually do.
no,
But
I love it. But yes,
but
go
it's
ahead.
also, I think it's also the fact that you know it's also depends on who is ultimately influencing the art house and that middle of the road cinema ka sensibility and in the differentiation of it all.
Yeah,
Because, and at the end of the day, even if we discuss and even if we debate all of it, at the end of the day, it all comes down to your own personal taste. People
of
will
course.
find something. People are looking for something within a movie. Me
Yes.
personally, I always look for quote unquote a narrative.
Hmm.
Me personally,
Yeah.
I will
I'm
always.
surprised then that you've responded this well to Payal Kapadia's films because they are very
No,
like
no, but that's the
they have a
thing.
lighter
Yeah.
narrative to
No,
it
but
than
that's the thing,
Yeah.
right? By narrative, I mean at least within the narrative, even if you are diverging, I can actually follow your divergence,
yes,
which is
yes.
why I like Delinquents. I'm
This
not
is the
supposed to like that movie.
Argentinian
Yeah,
3 hour 10-minute film
3 hour,
about
10 minute
a
film. Yeah,
heist that happens
a
at the
heist that
opening
happens
credits and
in two
then there's
minutes.
no
Yeah, two
then the whole
minutes.
movie is about inaction and like sort
Yeah,
of drifting
basically.
away after what the
It's a
heist
No,
happens.
gorgeous
but
movie if anybody hasn't seen
Yeah,
it. But
we'll
yeah,
try. But
yeah, Prakhar.
when you say narrative, then there are different ways of understanding and reading into the narrative as well. Some people
Yeah.
expect a linear story or at
Mhm.
least a
yes, yes.
connected story.
Mm.
When I look at a film and I want to derive a narrative out of it, then it just does not is the, let's say, the plot, but
Mm.
any sort of meaning that is being created by any other element of the film. So even
Sure.
if you have a loose story, so as to say, not as tight knit, but
Mm.
you are supplementing it with a certain sense of spatial aesthetics, a certain sense of sound design,
Hmm.
then it becomes a full package or a more holistic narrative for me.
Yeah.
But and you mentioned form earlier, Hannah, when
Mm.
you were talking about that criticism of Disciple.
Mm.
Even in that reading, my only counter would be key the amount of weightage you put on form as
Mm.
something you are engaging in a film with,
Yes.
how much it matters to you. And
Exactly.
does your reading of the film become
Hmm.
so how much a
Yeah.
narrative matters to you and what
Yeah.
the narrative is. So almost like no wrong way of reading a film.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
Because
think
There's never.
it's
I don't think
the
there is
point
ever
you
a wrong
brought
way.
up, the point you brought
uh-huh.
up, Prakhar, is exactly why I love A Night of Knowing Nothing.
Hmm.
Which,
Mm.
Good.
yeah.
I'm expert. You've become, Amartya.
Thank
I'm
you.
proud.
Let's
Yes.
move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. अरे so continue करो.
প্রিয় একটা ভয়ানক স্বপ্ন দেখলাম বুকটা ভারী হয়ে আছে
In
Yes.
a night of knowing nothing, she uses space so well because
Yeah.
again it's a flimsy narrative. We know it's a simple story,
Hmm.
epistolary chal rahi hai, letters
Hmm.
chal rahe hain. But it's a spectacle of a space, and you read into that space because
Yeah.
whatever she's saying is not exactly happening in it. It's
Hmm.
somewhat related to it,
Yeah.
है ना?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And
Hazy, unclear.
It's very,
हाँ,
yeah.
so it sort of invites you to
Yeah.
contribute to it, and I love the films that invite you directly into them,
Invite you to
Yeah.
directly engage. Yeah.
And
and then
what
with that
Dhruv,
pacing give you the space to engage with it. It's not like मैंने दिखा दिया चलो next cut now
It's
you
not
think
like
about it later.
sort of quick.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah, think with me,
letting
take your
allow
you
time.
sit with
the
it.
room.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
allow you the space to think, feel, reflect, whatever,
हाँ,
etc. Right. Anyways,
And
Aryan, you were saying.
what Dhruv mentioned about evoking connections through these different landscapes. I think A Night of Knowing Nothing is very deliberately through its form and function, while it's not evoking connections as much as it is evoking the sense of the longing for those connections, while at the
Yes.
same
mm-hmm.
time it's like showing the massive disconnect between that
Mm.
quote unquote connection between the artist versus the establishment and
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
what
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
goes in between. So
Yes.
the in between over here is it comes across as an ethereal
Yeah.
space where
Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
those thoughts come in, where it's like, and
Mm-hmm.
especially like I remember watching it for the first time quite late, not in 2021, I think it was in 22, and
22
watching
only,
it
I
at
think
the
it came.
peak of the farmers' protest where
Mm-hmm.
women took the center
Oh, where
stage in
you watched
India.
that
And
Mami mein that was the film you left also, right?
which
Good.
one?
I forgot. There is some
I think
film
there
you
was
watched.
last year there was
Oh
a film
yeah.
on
No,
farmers'
no,
Yeah, yeah.
protest, Mami mein,
Yes,
yeah.
where you were
right,
like,
right,
it's
right.
very like
Yeah.
stayed in how it's
Yeah.
showing it,
Some
almost.
Oh,
days,
definitely.
na, some number of
I
No, no,
days.
forgot.
no.
Yeah,
That
There
yeah.
was
was
a
a
3 hour documentary in which Aryan finished it before 3 hours. I know that.
yeah.
So, because I
No,
got a
but
call
that
after I
film.
finished my screening, and he was like, "Oh, I was like,
Let's
oh,
hang
weren't you
out.
supposed to be in that screening?" But anyways, yeah.
So
Go
I
ahead.
think her aesthetic strategy is much more about heightening that surreal mood by just juxtaposing both the like individual ethos along with the collective tragedy that
Yeah.
we as a nation are going through. And
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I'll expand more upon the collectivism of it versus the
Yeah.
individualism of it in when we talk about All We Imagine Is Light.
Yeah.
But I think over here the dichotomy comes across even better because she's also like creating a feature where it's like an amalgamation of both
Yeah.
documentary
That
narrative
It's
and
yeah.
fiction. Yeah,
it's
Yeah, yeah.
the
it's
as you actually perfectly mentioned that the in
Mhm.
between. It's in between
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's in
yeah,
between
and
form in terms of like even like narrative,
yeah,
of course, in terms of what like I think some of the best cinema comes when people are like in the reflective sort of process, in the idea that something is almost at the almost at the brink of collapsing or at the brink
yeah,
of like to me cinema a lot of times is about I think Aryan you mentioned in your review about remembrance, about this whole
yeah.
idea of night, like that. I mean, I think it's a full-fledged sort of nightmarish uh,
Mm.
evocation of what it means to live in India for that particular person, and I think just for whoever's not aware of the film, because I know it had a very staggered release and it couldn't get a
Mhm.
release in India because it's so overtly critical of the establishment, and it's I think her most direct film. Like there is no
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
the
Yeah, koi matlab kuch
Apichatpong are
no
almost
meter
kept to a
whatever.
nil, I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
say here, which is why I like and not I love that filmmaker. I think the fusion of that because there is the vibe of the film still has an Apichatpongness to it just
Oh
because
yeah,
of how much she relies on that space and like
It
giving you the space of
I don't know
yeah,
whether the film evoked this, but it definitely reminded me of old photographs slowly dying
yes,
out, you know.
yeah,
oh
S-
yeah.
Silver
absolutely.
And
nitrate, silver nitrate getting
Amartya,
exposed,
Mm,
silver nitrate exposes
yeah,
showing you the film, showing you your photograph within the
yeah,
film. But as you leave those photographs more and more, they
Yeah.
slowly and steadily become corroded, and it's
Yes.
like the evocation is
In
with the
real
country
time.
as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
In real
evocation with the
time.
rot
That
in the country as well.
Yeah.
So
And I
and
think one
the
of
thing
the.
is,
Go ahead, Aryan. Go ahead.
bolo bolo.
just one more thing that
Hmm.
like what we have been seeing in India like for years now is like there's two kinds of uh two ways in which on both at the left and the right there's like
Mm-hmm.
galvanizing power and ideas through like two very extreme means.
Hmm.
And here is a film
Hmm.
that would rather galvanize popular imagination through like images that
Hmm.
feel ephemeral, right?
Hmm.
And that's what this stood out to me, and that's what the film's lasting impact. That's why the
Mm-hmm.
lasting impact of the film remains till this day, and
Yeah.
it's because it uses that quietness
Hmm.
to like galvanize these thoughts and ideas into our heads, which
Yeah.
is like again like the way in which only cinema can.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
and talking
incredible.
about that in-betweenness, right? It's
Hmm.
what astonished me the most is you guys are talking about how it's like deeply reflective, but it also manages to be extremely blunt when it needs to.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
that is
yeah.
what is most astonishing. Like
Yeah.
as it went on, I'm like, I cannot believe this film exists.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is what is
yeah.
going on in my
But
head.
I think
Which
Chris,
is
what
why
you
it
mentioned.
doesn't exist, quote unquote.
Hmm.
Yeah, but it's
Complete.
yeah.
Sorry.
So
Yes.
I had a point on that as well, but we'll
Hmm.
get to it. But the fact is
Mhm.
that she's able to make that room for you to reflect on it, to have that ambiguity while also just being like, this is what this film is about. I am
Yeah.
not
Mm-hmm.
sugarcoating a thing.
Yeah.
I'm not retracting any names. I'm telling you what it is about, but you
Hmm.
can still think about it. And I think that is where it really shines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
The
think
bluntness, the fact that the bluntness only comes across through real archival footage and
Hmm.
not
mm-hmm.
by the filmmaking, the form, it that again in itself, again,
Yeah.
individualism versus collectivism.
It's the
I'll get back
it's
to
the
another.
personal political
Personal with the political.
That,
yes.
of
Yeah,
Yeah.
course,
yeah.
of course. Same thing, yeah.
Because
but with
I mean,
the
for whoever's not familiar, the film is about a student who's
At
basically
FTI.
yeah, at FTI, who's writing letters to an estranged lover who is away, and like it's almost a breakup story, or again, it's the
mm.
in between of a relationship on the brink of a
It's
collapse,
almost
Yes,
essentially.
so
it.
for
Which,
me, the merit is
hmm.
that she situates it in a very liminal space
Yep.
because it's
Mhm.
always in between of everything.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
while having done that, manages to be so direct, as Chris
Yeah.
puts it. It's
Hmm.
blunt when it
Yeah.
needs to be. And again, it speaks of the play she does with firm. So all her work
Hmm.
is docu-fiction, earlier
Hmm.
films lesser. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
as we move further in the timeline, it's
Hmm.
and she mentioned she's heavily inspired by Miguel Gomez.
Hmm.
So, and his work is
Hmm.
again very similar
Isn't it
docufiction
very
elements of
eclectic in its mix of stuff also? Like he like
ha
mixes
ha.
a lot of forms and everything, right?
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
not
yeah,
very yeah,
does.
sure. Go on.
So and if we out of the handful of good films that were there and I was
Sure.
excited about, I managed to catch a Grand Tour.
Yeah.
And if somebody asked me, would I recommend? And I said,
Hmm.
to a friend who's not into films as much, no. But
Yeah.
maybe somebody who enjoys form, cinema
Yeah.
as a form, as an art form, yes,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the film does bore you at points,
Okay. Hmm.
but it also manages to engage you with how he's
Hmm.
trying to tell the story with the form, and
Sure.
you and that's my way of deriving entertainment out of cinema. So I sit
Hmm.
there and I watch it. The
Hmm.
number of people who walked out is astonishing. Two old guys fell asleep beside me. So but when she talks about
Reminds me of
how
my PhD. Reminds me of my all these seminars I attend. But anyway, it doesn't
Okay,
matter.
fine.
Yeah.
No, I've
but
experienced walkouts in film, like even in like
huh
your. It's I'm like just then don't come. No, like to be my
yeah
my internal thing is like just don't come to the film. But
but
anyways, go ahead.
yeah so
Yeah.
so what is impressive is that when she mixes forms, it doesn't seem gimmicky.
Not
It's
at all.
not
Yes.
being done for the sake of doing it, or maybe see,
Hmm.
I'm trying something, doing so. There's a whole lot of purpose behind it,
Yeah.
and that purpose also gets conveyed very well,
Yeah.
scene after scene. So
Yeah.
that's what I
I
feel is the
I
merit of her
also
style.
I think
Hmm.
I brought this up in the live stream. Dhruv
Hmm.
can correct me on this.
I mean, we have talked about A
We
Night
have
of Doing
talked about
Nothing
this.
in brief spurts, like when it sort of released, and we had included it in the best of
Yeah,
that
yeah.
year. But it had such a staggered release. Like it was on Criterion for about a year, I think, and now it's not there. I think it's just more of a distribution thing than
Hmm.
anything. Why it's not on
Mm.
Criterion, but India, mein toh it's just not gonna get
It's
released
not
because
going.
it's
It's not going to
you know
get released.
like
No, but I think in the live stream itself, I think because I had just watched this and I'm so glad that we brought up Ray because I'm bringing up another filmmaker here.
Mm.
I had just seen Mrinal Sen's interview
Mm.
when I first saw A Night of Knowing Nothing.
Mm.
So I think the purpose of the form of Night of Knowing Nothing is also very much anti-establishment,
Mm.
Mhm.
because conventional form would mean adhering to establishment. If
Yeah.
your entire movie is basically a commentary against establishment, why not
Mm.
make your form also something completely
Yeah.
anti-establishment?
For an extended exploration of this, you can listen to me and Chris talk about Boat Travai also. But anyways, I have to plug that
But
movie and episode all the time. But
but
anyways, go ahead. Yeah.
I don't think it is something that is happening with the Night of Knowing Nothing. I think
Mm.
it's a happy coincidence.
Mm.
It's not that the
Yeah,
form
maybe entirely
because you
possible.
can
Yeah.
see it develop in the previous films as well,
Mm.
and it
Those
just
scrolls, right?
extends
Those scrolls, right? Those
Scribblings.
small scribblings,
scribblings.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which was
Yeah.
in the the mango before last monsoon.
It's in
That was
every.
there. It's
It's
almost
there.
in every
Almost
of the
every
short films.
film.
Yeah.
I don't think it's in All We Imagine, if I remember correctly.
No,
No,
it
it's
isn't.
not there.
It's not.
Okay.
It's not there. No.
Anyways, I mean, not that we are counting
Can't
how many
recall.
scribblings she has in her films, but
Mm. No,
it's.
but if
But
you are
was
going
the
to,
scribbling thing kind of links to your thing about things not being very. I mean, the unclarity is a theme of the film. Like, it's
yeah.
about knowing nothing, right? That's the whole thing, and
Hmm.
the whole film takes place in darkness. It almost feels like there are times when you can't see the thing
Yeah.
and you
No,
can
but
only hear
genuinely though,
voices.
I don't think. I mean, we can call it a happy coincidence, but I also
Hmm.
don't think that it is quote unquote coincidental. I think
Okay.
it is also very deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Because if you are going to make a documentary about what is going on, you are putting archival footage. Every If you are a filmmaker with a very specific purpose in mind, I genuinely believe that your
Hmm.
filmmaking purpose should include each and every section or each and every mood you're inputting. It has a specific purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, when
And
I say happy coincidence, I don't mean that it so happened that she made a film about
yeah.
against
Yeah.
establishment, all of that. Happy coincidence is that it all sort of fits in that her voice is developing in that direction
In that
and
direction, yeah.
in that direction, and then
Organically.
happens this
Hmm.
It's
series of events
I
that.
think the
I
Sohani
think
Singh
it's more of a
biography
sad
had
coincidence also, to be
yeah.
very
Oh
honest,
yeah,
because those
Yeah.
events shouldn't have happened in the
Yeah.
first
yeah,
Yeah.
place.
I think that Sohani Singh biography had listed Anand Patwardhan also as a key inspiration for her. And I think
Hmm.
this is
Which
sort of
is
a
evident, yeah.
fusion of Anand Patwardhan style filmmaking almost with that whatever
Which
Apichatpong
is
thing,
very blunt
which
again.
I think is great because
Patwardhan is,
but I
yeah,
think
very
it's the
blunt, yeah.
you get that narrative of a person who's not maybe as politically inclined but gets a political awakening because of what is
Of the
happening in the country. So
consequences of,
it's this
yeah.
whole thing where
mm,
that narration which earlier tries to do the personal and the political, it's like gradually slips away into being very directly political. So it's
Yeah,
like
it intermingles to the extent that it becomes that.
I think
That's
her
when it
voice
is a.
gradually sort of just fades out. Like her narration starts fading out more and more, and you get the archival footage sort of
mm,
ramping up
It's
more
more like,
because
it's almost like the romanticism is fading away, right? Because
romantic or even
yeah,
distancing, right? Because when you're
yeah,
talking over an image about your relationship, but the image itself sometimes is about something else, you're trying to distance yourself away also from it. And I think that sort of, because the idea is that she gradually learns that the we can spoil it, I suppose,
I think
that
I think when I watched it, the one like out of many takeaways
hmm,
and out of a lot of like moments of like overwhelming instances, the
hmm,
one thing that I also took away was that because of the style, the monochrome aesthetics and the
hmm,
quietness, it's also like speaking to some kind of indifference that we as the viewer ourselves have stepped
hmm,
ourselves into while reminding of us of how fragile these little moments can actually be when
yeah,
in fact they are very urgent and like
yeah,
yeah, we
mm,
are basically
that's
desensitized, right?
so that's what
Itna
I took
hona
away from it. Like
yeah.
the and she's trying to like slap us, like not literally or even like underscore while underscoring it, but like asking us to not be indifferent,
no, it
to
feels like
not let this
it's a
night of
rattling,
not
like
It's
it like
call to
exactly
rattles
arms.
you. Yeah,
It's a call to
exactly
call
to
arms,
to arms.
not
basically.
Yeah,
let
Yeah.
this night pass by just like that because the night has consequences. What's
yeah.
happening within the night through every night in this country, it has consequences.
Mm.
And it's I don't think it's just like you said, I agree that it's not just indifference, but I also think it's forgetting. Like there's this idea that we were discussing quite heavily in our course about the idea of unofficial accounts or unofficial history. Like very much what she uses is mainstream images to talk about the side of the story that we have been forced by the mainstream to forget, or we have been
Yep.
asked to forget. You know, when we
Or
the
have
one
not
thing
even
that she
been
talks
shown.
about or
Yeah.
not haven't been shown. You know, you they're always framed as, you know, her point is that these protesters were framed in a certain way, but all of us knew that they weren't that way, but we have been bombarded with so much talk about that it is this way. She's accounting for, or she's documenting those unofficial histories or those unofficial narratives that we have been told we are not supposed to know, we're supposed to forget, and she's telling, don't forget it, it is there. You know,
Don't let
you
it fall
cannot
away.
don't let it, you cannot remember the
Yeah.
story from their side. You have to remember what was actually going on in that sense also.
Yeah.
And
No,
because
absolutely.
it takes on a different meaning, because the crackdown was on an institution about film. It's like one of the
Yeah, yeah.
most prestige, and it's like
And
you're
I think her
letting the
personal
images
romance
fall away.
also sort of includes the parents rejecting her because
Oh yeah,
of a
it's all
is it is it a
cast, I think.
caste thing for her, or is
Yeah,
it more of a difference
it's like
in
a
general
casting.
casting? But
Casting, yeah.
I guess for me, like I just particularly maybe respond more to films which use that sort of, how the political awakening can't just happen. It's like the whole of course for
Yeah.
some people it can, but like there's the it sort of happens very organically in this. It doesn't feel slapped on at all, like it doesn't, which I don't want to take a dig on that other film that sort of
Bold though. Come
we've
on, come
taken a
on.
dig on that a lot of times.
Come on,
I've
come
I've
on.
not been a fan of Sean Astin's film that much. All That
Yeah.
Breeze. I
All
think
That Breeze,
that feels like a very deliberate slapping on of elements onto each other. Like I
At
think
least
it's
at least the entire
fabrication.
politics of it all,
Yeah,
because
to me, it never felt
Mhm.
cohesive, like in a way
Yeah.
which sort of made
Shoehorned.
me feel very, very uncomfortable. And this film
if
does.
if all that bleeds had been a narrative, those sections would have been added in post production in an ADR, because that's
yeah,
what they
yeah,
feel
yeah,
like.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I think that, I mean, I didn't want to include this, but sure, Amartya, thank you for making me
You want to
repeat
make us
myself.
more cancelled? Why not?
Well,
Anyway,
a
That
lot
was
of
the
people,
agenda, no? That's
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that
that's
was
the
That's the
aim
whole
we
agenda.
started with.
I mean, we
Yeah.
are releasing this in India with whatever, like, I guess about talking about A Night of Knowing Nothing, which never released in India. So who
Yeah.
knows? People will probably be object to that. Anyways, any more thoughts on this? We can move to All We Imagine then.
Oh, I have a good segue for it.
ഇത് പ്രവേശിക്കാണല്ലോ ഇതിപ്പോ ആരയക്കാനാ ഒന്നും കാണുന്നില്ല ഇതിലെന്തോ ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൽ എഴുതിയിട്ടുണ്ട് मेड इन जर्मनी प्रभु ചേച്ചിയുടെ ഹസ്ബൻഡ് എവിടെയല്ലേ
लास्ट टाइम कभी फोन किया था उसने 1 साल से ऊपर हो गया
ചേച്ചിക്ക് ആളെ നേരത്തെ അറിയായിരുന്നു
തീരെ അറിയത്തില്ലായിരുന്നു. ഒരു ദിവസം അച്ഛൻ വിളിച്ച് വെച്ച് വീട്ടിലോട്ട് വരാൻ പറഞ്ഞു. ഞാൻ ചെന്നപ്പോഴത്തേക്ക് ആ ഒരു കല്യാണമൊക്കെ നിശ്ചയിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞായിരുന്നു.
ഒട്ടും അറിയാത്ത ഒരാളെ എങ്ങനെയാ കല്യാണം കഴിക്കുക കൊണ്ടൊന്നും പറ്റുമെന്ന് തോന്നുന്നില്ല.
So it's one of the thematic things that recurs
Sure.
in her works. We all know it's always women-led narratives. It's an entry into their world.
Yeah.
And it almost asks you to imagine what the cinematic language itself be like if it were devoid of that male gaze. It's a very common discussion, yeah. And then it comes together as this theme of an absent husband or a lover or a whoever who's never there, and still as the narrative progresses manage to disappoint without having been present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
So
by
with
the
just he's already absent, and
Yeah.
yet and as a woman
I'm
it's just so
impressed.
relatable.
I'm
It's
impressed.
so relatable. So and, apart from all of things that A Night of Knowing Nothing is about, it's also about this very personal disappointment the
Sure.
protagonist goes through.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yes.
I kept going back to Afternoon Clouds, where this woman keeps thinking of her dead husband.
Yeah.
And of course, it's a callback to this exact thing in All We Imagine as well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
The thing
that
is,
thematic thread.
even the disappointment out of separation, the fact that it is the way it is shown, it's like erotic, it's almost erotic. Like the erotic separation is what leads. This is how I think about it. Like watching A Night of Knowing Nothing and then watching Kapadia make All We Imagine Is Light is like, oh my God, like it makes so much sense thematically and as form from going to from docufiction to like a full feature length. It's
There
because
are
this
docu
is how
elements
I
to
thought
this,
about
but yeah,
it. And yeah, of course,
in
but like it's
briefer, like the
the
more sprinklings as opposed to
like the opening, it's like basically
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
like
yeah.
The
And
opening and
wonderful
the
opening.
ending of the Mumbai
but
segment.
thematically,
The
the
ending of the Mumbai
thematically
segment is also that. Yeah, basically.
exactly like but thematically, of course, that's all informed. But
Hmm.
thematically, I always imagine it this way, especially upon a rewatch of All We Imagine Is Light, that the erotic separation in A Night of Knowing Nothing is what leads to ultimately the search for intimacy in
So
All We
you're
Imagine
saying
Is
that
Light in
the
a
L
bigger
character
city,
in
right?
that sort of links directly to
Oh yeah,
Prabhakam,
of
is
course,
it?
of course. And it's
Nice.
like,
Yeah.
and even like
Hmm.
again, form and function
Form
over
that
here.
Payal
The
Kapadia universe.
हाँ क्योंकि वही
yeah,
चाहिए.
No, but if her films are about connections,
more
I think
longing.
that the connecting her worlds is very
सर
much par for
कनेक्शन मतलब
course.
यूनिवर्स बनाना नहीं है. रोहित शेट्टी नहीं है हम. माफ
No,
करो.
Yeah, we already have
we are
enough
not mentioning
universes.
Rohit
Yeah.
Shetty. I was again
Yeah.
going back to Apichatpong, but okay, fine. His films are also like have connections popping up here and there, like Uncle Boon Me and whatever,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tropical Malady and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
anyways,
Anyway, I
all we
always choose the worst option, you remember, right? होता ही
what do you
है,
mean?
like, you know, Rohit Shetty and all that
Oh
Again,
stuff.
yeah,
like
yeah,
going back to A Night of Knowing Nothing, like one of
yeah.
the two major conjunctions, like in terms of the narrative quote unquote that we come
Hmm.
across, is like the two main points of conjunction for Kapadia just looking at her, just looking at a Night of Knowing Nothing, they
Hmm.
seem to be like power and identity, right?
Hmm.
I think the
Mm-hmm.
same conjunctions expand upon it themselves
Hmm.
in All We Imagine Is Light, because like
Hmm.
the metropolis of Mumbai in itself is like harboring space for these two things, power
Yeah.
and identity. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, again, collectivism and
Hmm.
individualism. And it's like expanding upon those acclamation points,
Hmm.
right? By creating this subliminal space again. So
I'm
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I
yeah.
don't want to laugh, but every time Aryan talks about collectivism and individualism, I'm always
Yeah.
reminded of that bad movie called The Fountainhead.
Oh my God.
It
Oh,
is
oh.
so bad.
And the bad book.
It is so bad. Oh
I'm
God.
not familiar, so I will.
No, but with me, what happens is, so this whole
Mhm.
theme of absent, whoever,
Hmm.
male presence, let's call it lovers,
Lover, yeah.
Hmm.
husbands, estranged lovers,
Hmm.
and I was talking about how you can see these themes and why little bit developed with each
Hmm.
film. And
Mhm.
are we allowed to spoil? Are we giving spoilers?
Yeah, we will spoil it, but before I think I'll introduce the film a little bit. I guess for
Yeah.
I have
Then
the
I'll come
basic
back to
plot
this.
noted down, and then
From
we'll
Yeah.
what,
just go
IMDb?
directly. Yeah, sure, why not? I have a collection of reviews also for with me to help me describe it, but I will use the lowest common denominator and use IMDb.
Yeah, yeah.
So or Letterboxd actually, either or. But anyways, yeah. So for whoever's not familiar, it was the Grand Prix winner at Cannes. I guess that's its calling card for because that's how you promote films. I feel like to other for other people to watch. It's just like, oh, it won that award at Cannes.
It's
Not that it's
important.
like a
That is
great
literally
film
what
that
I
you might
told my
like.
parents to take me to take them to it. I was like, they've
Point
got a
thrown.
fancy award.
Exactly, it's a fan like it's that the institutions ka only function is essentially to allow you to
Those
from
wreath leaves are enough for that
yeah,
only.
exactly. Anyways, it's directed by her, written by her. It's shot by Ranavir Das again, who's again collaborated in everything. I think he's also been an editor for a couple of shorts, I think,
Hmm.
and he was an editor for A Night of Knowing Nothing also.
He
So
was, yeah.
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 This one is edited by Clement. I think because I don't know how to pronounce the name. I'm going to butcher the French name. Anyway, it's Clement Pinto. I think that's the.
You got shaded by small this thing, by the way, for the Botrabai episode because our pronunciations were miserable. I have a French friend. I sent it to her. She got really mad at us.
I mean, like, we try our best, but we fail. that's life, I suppose. But anyways, this
Thank God we haven't had a Japanese episode in a while.
I mean, we can't not talk about stuff if we can't pronounce it properly, right? We try, anyways. Composer, I think there's a soundtrack composer who's different, but there's a composer title given is Dhridaman Das. But I think the repeated thing which I've read on a number of reviews is that the soundtrack includes the Ethiopian jazz number, which is the Homeless Wanderer, which we can. I don't
Is
know how
it
to
that?
link.
Is it that keyboards? Is it that
Keyboard in the
keyboard?
in the Mumbai section where
In the Mumbai
they're
section,
like a
yeah,
love letter being written
yeah.
essentially, and then those words almost flowing through clouds
Yeah.
from one place to another. If you want to
Nice
call it that.
connecting afternoon clouds. Anyway, chalo. Nice.
Yeah, I
Nice.
didn't. Yes. Anyways, the film
Happy
is
coincidence.
happy coincidence. Yeah, the film.
This one's happy.
Yes, yeah. The film is about, it's set in Mumbai where and this I'm taking from Letterboxd, Nurse Prabha's routine is troubled when she receives an unexpected gift from her estranged husband. Her younger roommate Anu tries in vain to find a spot in the city to be intimate with her boyfriend. A trip to the beach town allows them to find a space for their desires to manifest. The plot doesn't include the third character, which is, I think, a mistake because I think it's very much
Yeah.
about all three.
Yeah.
other
Otherwise,
people.
beach town में कैसे जाएंगे यार?
Exactly. How
Yeah.
do you go to the beach town?
Yeah.
Because there's another character by the name of Parvati, played by Chaya Kadam, who's the connecting link between this and Lapata ladies, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And she's the oldest and fiery,est who looks for a new home after wealthy developers blackmail her to empty her current house before they start demolishing it. So it's basically the story of these three people living in a city which loves or forgets to love them, or forgets to listen to them. And I'm being very pat about this, but then to buy, and then the film allows them that time or space to go to another place and find that love in whatever different sort of form. We are going to talk about it in spoilers, I think. Yeah, we can talk about it in spoilers. I think it's released in India right now. It's playing. I'm hoping it's playing in some of the cinemas around you. If not, then
If it is,
then
please go and watch.
I don't know.
Please
I
support
wanted
it.
to say then ask
Please do,
Amartya, but I
please
was
do.
like, no, you can't. So,
No,
sorry,
I'm
you
from
want to say?
Bhopal. Yeah, I'm from
Yeah.
Bhopal, and almost all the time it happens a good film, it does not release in
Yeah.
Bhopal. ठीक है? You wait for it, it doesn't
Can-
release.
I'm
All we
raising my
imagined
hand.
released.
I'm raising my
All we
hand.
imagined has released in Bhopal. So
Really?
if anybody
Okay.
from, yeah, I was surprised, very
Wow.
surprised.
Nice.
No,
Well,
somebody requested it to Payal Kapadia.
Yeah, on
and she-
Twitter,
And she,
yeah.
on
Oh.
Twitter, and
Oh,
she requested it
wow.
back to Spirit Media. So that
Apparently it
shows
was
Interesting.
came.
there,
Yeah.
but it got cancelled the night before,
Yeah.
and then they got
And
her
then
to
it got
put
it back. Yeah.
Interesting. Nice.
So thank her.
Nice.
Also thank her for the aspect ratio correction
Aspect
for every
ratio.
theater. She's fighting the good fight.
Yes.
Yes.
She's been lovely on Twitter. Like watching her like fight so passionately about it has been
Somebody needs
quite
to fight against PVR Inox. Those fuckers. Anyway, let's move on. Yeah.
Thank you, Amartya.
Yeah.
Anyways, no,
वैसे
who's,
भी थिएटर स्पॉन्सर नहीं करने वाले हैं हम लोगों को, सो क्या ही है.
that I know, but I'm just saying.
कोई
Thank you.
स्पॉन्सर नहीं करने वाला है तुम लोग को.
थोड़ी-
तुम किसको शेड नहीं करते हो.
Payal Kapadia will sponsor us when
Payal
she becomes
Kapadia
more
will sponsor
popular.
us. We are not shading her.
नहीं, वो मैंने थोड़ा स्टार्टिंग में कर दिया, so वो cancel
But
out.
I think we have damage control हो गया.
हाँ,
We
I think
praised her
so.
enough.
Yeah.
बहुत अच्छी तरह से. हाँ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so
No, I think we
so
can start with my parents' car reaction because that is like,
Yes.
it is an interesting. Okay, so as I was
Yeah.
saying, both of my parents are like proper Malayalam cinema cine snobs. Okay, that
Mhm.
proper capital C cine snobs.
Cine
who-
ace. Cine ace. Somebody insulted me with that term, by the way. I have no idea why. But anyway.
So so they are the type who make fun about how terrible Hindi cinema is, and my mom and
Absolutely
I
correct.
fight. As
We
you
move
and as Amartya and Dhruv do about Karan Johar, I do with my mom constantly. So that is the kind of household I
it's a
grew up
losing
in.
battle,
And
but yes, yeah.
so my dad is the kind of person who likes art cinema, but he thinks he's not smart enough to get it because he's not from an artistic background, or he says so. So for him it's like I took him to watch La Camera. He absolutely loved it. So
La
that's the
Camera
kind of,
is by
Alice Rohrwacher,
Alice.
Rohrwacher,
I will
Rohrwacher,
butcher her
yeah.
by Italian director,
It's
amazing.
basic.
She's a very
It's basically like I
actually
call it
magical
art house.
realism even works here.
Yeah,
So
art
even
house
that
Indiana Jones, great movie.
Yeah,
Art house Indiana.
absolutely.
Yeah,
So
art house
he
Indiana.
absolutely adored it, and but my mom. So I was telling before the recording that I took my parents to watch two films. One was this Portuguese film called Ban, which was on the European Union Film Festival. I objectively think the film is terrible, but it had that art house sensibility, and they were like, "This is too pretentious," and they walked out halfway through. So
Sure.
I thought, okay, All We Imagine Is Light is far more sort of substantive. It's won the Grand Prix, and it's a lot of it is in Malayalam. So I was like, they might like it. So I took both of them. And I was sitting in the middle with both of them on either side. I look at my dad and he's like enjoying it. And I look at my mom and I was telling these guys that she was playing Netflix on like the lowest volume and listening to it on her ear, not to disturb anyone, because that's how much she did not want to be there. And to her, like she loves art cinema, but this fell into the trying too hard to be art cinema sort of space for her.
Which Prakhar,
And,
you also got a
there are-
response like that, right? With
Yeah,
for
yeah,
some-
yeah. I have a friend. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing I think, which is one thing I thought was quite interesting, I hope we can get into it, is that I've got this criticism from other friends as well. They thought the film was a bit too voyeuristic. So those two, that was the two things that really rubbed her off.
Interesting.
Voyeuristic about?
Then so it should have
The-
gone
the-
to the Oscars.
the nudity, the nudity and the
Jesus,
in that
Aryan.
I
what?
had
nude scene.
They were
yeah, no,
in
it's-
All We
the
Imagine Is
ones-
Light. They were
yeah.
really.
In the sense that it's
There are
trying
two
to like I had other sort of it's like three scenes. I think there's one of
There's the
one
guy
of them
was
was like
like-
dressing up.
one was the dressing up, one was another of what's her of Kani Kusruti, and then the sex
Yeah.
scene. But I had like other
Yeah, I would assume the objection would only be for that scene. But yeah, like I would assume firstly, why would you object to that, considering
Isn't it one
that
of the
is
more
the-
tasteful ways to handle
Yeah.
these things? Yeah.
No, it's the idea. Again, you have to understand that they are my parents, so there is that Puritan.
No,
idea
No, I'm
of-
not.
No, no, I
thought-
understood.
I
No,
thought
no,
you were
I get
mentioning
it.
people on Twitter, not your
The most
parents. I'm not
surprising
confusing.
thing over here is that they didn't censor those scenes.
Yeah, exactly.
That is
Indian
very
censor
bad.
board didn't censor
Is
those.
it
What
UA
the
or
hell?
A?
It's A.
It's A.
A, okay.
It's A.
Arey,
So
ho,
that
fir
was
bhi.
No, I was, yeah,
Indian
that's
censor
true
board hai.
actually. Mm-hmm.
so that was so my point is that we were not a mainstream audience who went to see the film. We were very much
Sure.
people that the film could
Did you have
appeal
people
to.
in your
And
screening?
yeah, it was about, I would say, half filled.
How many
lot,
walkouts?
A lot of people are there. No walkouts. It definitely seemed like a crowd who was happy to be there.
Yeah.
But
Nice.
so I really liked it. My dad was like pretty impressed by it, and my mom was like, "Get me out of here! Like you ruined my day." Level of annoyed.
Some
by
nice combination. I think that would be, yeah. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, Prakhar, you can also expand on your experience, and then we'll go back to the point you wanted to make also about.
So again, I'll continue with the criticism my friend had, because we had a discussion about it, and he felt the same. So I watched it at Mami. He watched after it was released, Abhi, and he said that, yeah, I really felt it fell into that trap, pretentious artsy cinema, looking a certain way, a certain style to pander to a certain audience. And while I agree with half of it, that it does adopt that certain style, but at the same time, I feel that Payal Kapadia does it well, and the film worked for me. The reason it worked for me was that it's again not a gimmick that visually see I'm trying to do this. She does add various layers to it, which does make it a holistic experience. And then on top of that, even though we have seen similar looking films before, there have been few similar feeling films before, and especially as a woman audience, because you do get that less. And the point
Yeah,
that
sorry, just to, I know Cris has a personal connection with Mumbai also, so there's a different layer that gets added there, which I don't know, like I've been to the city 3-4 times and I've hated it, so it's like
but
different sort of.
no,
I spent a
I
decade
like the
there.
city.
Okay,
Oh,
so but
wow.
no, I'm the non-crowd person, so you can see why I hate it.
I've
for-
been to the city twice. I'm very ambivalent about it. But anyway.
I'm a visitor. So for
Yeah.
visitors, Mumbai is always charming because there's a certain call to it. You don't have to get. So
I disagree,
last
but
year,
okay, fine, go ahead.
I'm currently in Mumbai. What are you talking
Okay.
about?
That's why I'm not there, no?
Aap
No,
sab
but-
namuna ho. Let's not go
She's
there.
at she's at
But-
RA for
What what appealed was that so the way she captures Mumbai, and I had just seen that through the auto window. I'm going, and then I walk into a theater. So that's the outside world that I come from, and
It's
the
not the
world on the
tourist's
screen.
point of view, sort of. It's like a very lived in. I hate using that word, but yes, lived
But
in.
yeah, so it sort of merged for me there
But
because it's that really continued from outside to inside. But the point I was making earlier was that her, this presence of a missing dead husband and her voice developing slowly with each film. And then with All We Imagine Is Light, you see a manifestation of this dead husband in a way.
Yeah.
And with this physical presence is also a mark that, see, I've also formulated my voice and it's here. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
I
it
would. I
almost
so
works like a
I
culmination.
couldn't get to rewatching it before this episode, but
Yeah.
I'm very curious about how the film plays to me on a second watch. Because for me, I I think if we were doing this sort of best of this year thing, if it was a half a movie, this would probably be my favorite movie of the year. The moment it leaves Mumbai, it sort of leaves me a little bit also. To me, again, this might go back to the Apichatpong thing, where I was just like, that's where it becomes too overtly like in a Apichatpong film, where I was like, and I didn't feel the emotional sort of weight of it coming through in that particular scene you're talking about. I'm curious to see if I go back to it and if it all sort of,
Yeah.
because it's a rupture in the narrative, which also happens in his films, where
Yeah.
it's like, the film breaks and then there's two halves to it. There's one half, and then the first half for me just works wonderfully. I think it's a city symphony as a documentary and a narrative about these three
I
women.
also took it as a tone poem.
Tone poem, yeah,
I also
100%.
took it as a tone. You know what
So
this movie reminded me of? All We Imagine Is That. It surprised me thoda. George Miller ka, have you seen 3000 Years of Longing?
Oh yeah.
not a bad comparison.
I've
Yeah.
not seen it.
It's
Good
really
enough.
lovely if you like
George, Mi-
romances, which are
George Miller's 3000 Years of Longing, which again you should be surprised that I like a romantic movie.
yeah,
But
I
anyway,
am very.
yeah. So George Miller's 3000 Years of Longing is basically like Tilda Swinton is a scholar, literary
Yeah.
scholar, who suddenly finds basically Aladdin's magic lamp in her hotel room.
Yeah.
She rubs the magic lamp, the genie comes out, the genie is played by Idris Elba. And the genie starts conversing with her and telling the story of how his life had been up until that point.
Yeah.
As the story progresses, both the genie and Tilda Swinton's character fall in love. So when the movie quote unquote is supposed to end with both of them consummating and falling in love with each other. Except the movie in its final 30 minutes suddenly takes a massive break and then goes and then tries to show what would happen if an abstract construct like a genie actually were to exist in the modern world, what that would actually entail. And while the previous section had been simultaneously whimsy and funny,
Like, yeah, because
and
Idris
comic.
Elba, both of them are actors who sort of ground the whimsiness into their own sort of reality.
This second half, this second last 30 minutes is extremely melancholic and extremely, I think
it's a bit rushed in that film. I
it
won't
is
say
very
this film
rushed.
is
It's
rushed.
like
It just feels-
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it is melancholic, but it is also rushed, and it's like because that section was rushed, I thought it needed a bit more time.
Yeah.
I rewatched All We Imagine Is Light
Today, right?
before getting here, and while my issue with the movie is still thoda bahut there, ki I don't think ki both of the halves coalesce very well.
Yeah.
How do I put this? My misgivings about the second half and the magic realism is dissipated somewhat this time around, to the extent that I think I like the movie a lot more this time around. And I also think that is because I can actually connect to what the magic realism is going to happen within sections of the first half itself.
Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because
I
within
had the same experience with me.
because
Yeah,
within
I think when you
converse,
can. No,
please, Chris.
No, I think when you can anticipate, like that's why I didn't get the chance, but I wanted to go through over it. But because I think if you can anticipate it, you're able to sort of accommodate for it better, because for me the fundamental problem was that I like the second half, but the cut was so jarring that it took me too long to get used to it, so I wasn't able to appreciate
especially when the first half was so good at what it was building and leading towards. Again, the thing is that when I watched it for the first time, I talked about this with Dhruv the moment I finished watching the film, that we talked about it, and I was like, I'm not particularly sure whether I clicked with the second half, even though I absolutely love the ending.
Yeah.
But I don't think whether
The
it
ending,
flows
now that I
beyond
think of it, reminds me of Kumbalangi Nights of horror
Yeah,
films.
the entire
it's got a
movie,
lot of
the second half kind of
Yeah.
does
second
anyway.
half is, which is very, very deliberate again, I think. But then the time I rewatched it again, there was also a sense of longing in myself, because I had already moved. I had already moved countries, like not let alone my home. And when I rewatched it, that's the movie opens with these non-fiction flourishes. Okay, it's like a cacophony of sounds and
Beautiful
everything,
opening.
and then they get like minimized by the story almost, like, and the opening in itself, it's like it runs contrary to what the quote unquote outsiders might think of Mumbai, because it instantly puts you in a space of contemplation by showing those city markets, like those big markets, vegetable markets, fish markets at the night. And as for someone who's actively walked through those markets on like late hours in Mumbai on those streets, and instantly put me in a space of contemplation, which is like contrary to what anyone might think of Mumbai. Like, oh, it's a city of miraculous connections and opportunities. And then it introduces you to these three characters who, somewhere in their semblance of professionalism in their own ways,
Yeah, they're all nurses.
are
Oh, well, two
exactly
of them
they
are
are
nurses and one of them is like a chef.
Canteen lady.
Yeah, canteen.
which is
She
again
a
like
chef. I thought she was a chef at the canteen.
Canteen lady.
She's canteen lady.
She's a woman.
Okay.
Canteen lady, I mean.
Chef, gourmet chef बना दिया
No, I meant it in that
Nurse
sense,
के
but
canteen.
not gourmet.
So the
Nothing
word
is
you're looking
gourmet
for
in
is
this.
cook.
Thank
No,
you.
but
Chef.
my dad's a doctor, so I'm
Chef.
very well acquainted with hospital terminology.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Nurses are
No,
sisters.
Nurses
and,
are sisters, yes.
Nurses are sisters, and canteen lady.
Sure.
Yeah,
Nurses are
and,
sisters, like,
drawing on
people call
Aryan's point.
PTs sisters in India. This is so annoying.
Yes,
I'm like, no,
yes, they are.
no, no, they're not. That's why.
So
Anyways.
based on like Aryan's point, like I don't know how anecdotal I want to get, but like I spent a solid decade in Mumbai, and my experience is extremely different. Obviously, I grew up in a pretty good neighborhood in a gated colony in South Bombay, but one thing I was writing about is Mumbai is in one sense a great, like it's a city of inequality, as many big cities are. I mean, you have got the largest slum in the world, not very far from that one massive monstrosity of a building that is the residence of one of the richest men in this country.
Yes.
Which I have to pass by every day.
He might sponsor this. Let's
No, he's not
He's not.
sponsoring
You're
Geo.
welcome.
He's not sponsoring.
Mommy.
Nobody is sponsoring us. Don't worry about it.
I'm kidding. You go ahead. Give abuses. It's fine. I have no problem.
So it's obviously a city of inequality, but the great equalizer is that as an immigrant, I obviously don't know the experience of a native, but as an immigrant, it is a city of it is an equalizer, as you will feel the same way regardless of who you are in that city. It is you will feel like an outsider in it, does not matter how long you live there. It's a place you go to chase your dreams with a guarantee that they will not get fulfilled. Like for me, like that is very resonant with my own personal experience, having been in Bombay, and then a lot of the aspirations that I have came true when I moved to Goa. Like I sort of ended up moving away, and that is where all these dreams that I kept chasing sort of came into fruition. So it captures that. For me, what impressed me the most about the first half, apart from like the visual language and obviously everything, is that sentiment, that feeling that only an immigrant in Mumbai can experience, has been bottled so precisely that someone else could also experience it. That is what impressed me beyond that
I
je ne
would
sais quoi, that
highly recommend Chantal Ackerman's News from Home also. That will then maybe break your heart, because that's one of the most alienating portraits of New York. And I think I found it the most resonant. Because I found myself extremely lost at times in New York. So that, and I think the shades of that in All We Imagine Is Light ka first half were there plenty, and I think she's much more receptive as a filmmaker to other people. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
Arkham in cinema is about being
Isolated.
she's gone through a
Yeah.
hell of a lot of depression, and whatever her life
Yeah.
has been
Yeah.
had been a total wreck for the longest time, right? So I think there's a clear difference in their perception, because I think Payal Kapadia is clearly more interested in just exploring the snippets of people and how they
Mm.
talk and everything. Whereas if you see her
Like,
work, if you see News from Home, it's like barren. Like it's almost like a no one wants to talk. The sounds of everything else sort of consume you. It's
I think I empathized also with some of the minutiae, right?
yeah.
Like Chaya Kadam's character, that entire thing of her home being taken away because she doesn't have the papers,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
all that stuff, or the fact, or some of those beautiful moments, like Kani Kusuti's character actually hugging that rice cooker
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
in the dead of the night. Some of those
Hmm.
sequences, especially how she frames them, some
Hmm.
of the
And
color.
especially the way the light enters
Yeah,
the
yeah,
room when
Mm.
she's
yeah,
hugging.
yeah, yeah.
It's oh my god, like the
Hmm.
use of
and
the
and
use
of course the
clues
sound
and
design, of course the
Hmm.
sound design,
yeah.
the sound design is exquisite in some of
Hmm.
those sequences. But I also think that the fact is ki, it's also like an acknowledgement ki, like Chris said, it's about the city of dreams in a way, but it's like it's almost always a guarantee that none of your dreams are going to be fulfilled anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the cost of
Yeah,
an opportunity, basically, which is the
yeah.
I mean, I think Aryan, we discussed that one shot. I still like sort of framed in my mind is the one of Chaya Kadam in her like getting out of her
oh my
apartment
god, like
between
and
the
with the
bridges and the building, and
Yes,
she's
yes,
encroachment.
it's
that is a
like
fantastic
she's like
shot. Yeah,
Encroachment. It's
crushed
not
by
just
all sort of forces from
all
everywhere
forces.
in
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
again this the use of negative space, which
Uh,
again
Mm-hmm.
brings us back to like Antonioni and all those like great
Hmm.
filmmakers. But
yeah.
again, like again, another thing is that this is true for all of Kapadia's films. Like most
Hmm.
of cinema, most of great
Hmm.
cinema actually, like great cinema builds upon deep context. And
Hmm.
that's why, like
Mm-hmm.
before rewatching this film, now this time I knew I had to review it.
Hmm.
Before rewatching this film, I was feeling homesick out of a lot of things.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the best decisions I made is to like research more about Mumbai, which is like kind of ironic
Hmm.
because I've been there
Yeah,
often.
you mentioned a
But
book, right?
yeah,
In your
that's what I'm
review.
getting to. So
Yeah.
just one thing that I would like link
Yeah.
because it makes so much sense.
Hmm.
And one of the main reasons why I went from liking the movie to loving it so much that now I actively feel I'm actively afraid to think more about it because I might have a breakdown.
Okay.
That's
Amazing.
the bridge I climbed over.
That's the
Yeah.
objective
So
of our
I read this.
discussion.
I downloaded an ebook while researching about Mumbai and what
Yeah.
like the various interpretations of the city. I came across this book by Suketu Mehta. It's called
Hmm.
Maximum City,
Maximum
Bombay Lost and
City,
Found.
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I downloaded an ebook. Like I torrented it basically, and there's
Thank
just
you. You
one
don't.
line one line in the, I mean, I was just watching Kapadia's like roundtable, like Hollywood Reporter
Mm-hmm.
India's
Yeah. Yeah.
roundtable, and she's like, "We've watched films all our lives by torrenting." I'm like, now I
Yeah.
can like
Yeah.
just
Now
Every
everybody
season.
say
Now it's
it's on
now it's
record.
carte
Yeah, but
blanche.
that's like a और कैसे
Anybody can
देखेगा
refer
कोई?
to
the
torrenting.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
the
So
queen
in
has
that book,
spoken, so now we can too.
of course,
Though to be
in
fair
that
to
book, there's
everybody,
this one quote.
torrenting has now become the older way to
Now it's
pirate.
telegramming.
It's
Is it?
Oh
telegramming. It's
yeah.
Yeah.
it's
You are
Mm.
forums.
the linchpin for
Watch
us.
free online.
So,
Anyway,
anyways, yeah,
I did not want to
Yeah,
reveal
so there's
anything.
this one line
for
in the book
us, not
that
for everyone.
Mehta describes like
Hmm.
he describes Bombay as like a way station between paradise and hell.
I
And
Mm.
heard
I
you
was
say
like
waste station, and I was like, interesting.
like a way station between paradise and hell. And
yeah,
then
got it.
reading,
वो pun डाल
completing the
सकते हो.
book, and then watching the movie, I was like, the entire movie is existing in the subliminal space
Yeah, yeah,
between
liminal space
paradise
argument,
and
which I
hell
think goes
long.
from,
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, yeah.
that's why, like, my main criticism watching the film earlier, which is a lot, I'm saying this only because it's a lot of you guys have like similar criticism of the film, right? Going from the first
well,
half to the
yeah, like I found
I
it
think it made much
alienating in
more
the
sense
second.
then.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure,
it's
sure, sure.
That's why it
I was
and I think
wondering
it's perfect.
if there are stretches in the first half that, because one of the again, I hate
But
that.
I think,
Sorry, go ahead, Prakhar. You
yeah,
finish.
I was just
I'm
saying
going to
that,
bring up Apichatpong again, so better you go. Yeah,
yeah, but
yeah,
the difference is supposed to be that stark. It is supposed
yes,
to hit you
Exactly,
like this,
exactly.
ekdam bright light as
Yeah,
you
it's the
move
bright
to
light.
the
Yeah.
beach.
The
It's
It
blues are
hits
gone.
you.
Yeah,
it's
The
almost
blues
like
are gone.
narrative. It's almost like to
literally.
get to a quote unquote narrative denouement, you have to
Ha.
push so hard. You have to
And
go beyond that.
to bring out the catharsis in you, you actually have to physically move out of the city that will encroach on you. And it
Yeah.
happens through a character who's literally suffering through encroachment in her life. That's her
Yes.
biggest
Yeah.
setback. She
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
have the papers to prove that this land actually rightfully belongs to me.
Yeah.
And then it acts like a gateway between the space between paradise and hell,
Yeah.
where it
No,
becomes the
it's
only
I wouldn't say
accreditation.
that, like, I don't think it's that. I think it's just I was so into the balancing
Oh
act of
yeah.
doing a city symphony and
Yeah.
because I'm a
Hmm.
big fan of city symphonies in general, so
Yeah,
I
me
was I
too.
was I was fascinated by that so much that when it shifted, I was like, oh, I'm kind, and I don't
Yeah.
think it paints Mumbai in a whatever flattering light at all. I think
No, no.
No,
there's
no.
that alienation to me at least struck more so than a romanticism of the space, because I think that's the whole discourse about the film has been about the an ode to this, or like, or
It's
whatever,
not. It's not.
illusion of
Yeah.
Mumbai, whatever.
That's
No,
why
Oh,
it
yeah,
feels so different because it's not an ode.
yeah.
It's
yeah,
an
and it's also
reimagination.
Mm.
It's the reimagine. It's not reimaginating Mumbai as a city. It's reimagining Mumbai as a space of a
Yes.
feeling,
Yeah.
which is again
absolutely.
how do you
De-imaginating it,
Yes.
de-imaginating it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Basically,
absolutely. I
remove.
mean, that's
Yeah.
why
Mm.
if you ask a Mumbaiker, their relationship with Mumbai is always bittersweet. You will not
Yeah.
find a person who can romanticize Bombay that much. Like that, and again, I think that's what she captures in that sense that there is that city of dreams, that hope that you can romanticize it, but the fact that you absolutely cannot. And I think
Yeah, I
that is
think
Yeah.
what
I
she
had made
captures.
this when I'd watched it first time, at least. There's the flurry of voices, as you guys mentioned, opens the film, and you get the sense of Mumbai being an accommodative space in the sense that there are so many different languages, different things happening and everything. But then you later go and the doctor she rejects, the Kaniko Sutri character later, talks about how it's very hard to adapt in terms of the language
Yeah.
as an outsider, and you get like that. That's like that wonderful contrast in a way which is done very smoothly, very tastefully, as opposed to being like slapped down your throat or
Yeah,
whatever in some
basically
way.
not
So
exposed, basically not doing exposition, it's
Mm-hmm.
conversational in
yeah,
a way,
yeah. But
which
so yeah, but I think now I'll be much more receptive, at least to the second half. In general, since I know
see,
what the main inspiration is.
no, see the
So
I think the second half when I watched it this time around, I think second half and like Chris said, because I was anticipating it,
mm,
Yeah.
I judged it much more, as its own thing before trying to figure out whether it fits into the overall tapestry that the movie is
yeah,
trying to do.
I don't think I tried to fit it into the tapestry. I think it was more just me being interested in the first half more because it was
Yeah,
juggling
yeah,
two
of course.
things, and in
Mm-hmm.
this it sort of goes into like more character drama, and I was like, I was so enthralled by the balance of
The
character drama and
second
city
half,
that
it
the second
feels
half
like,
sort of
when you go through a tunnel, so
yeah,
you can almost see the line, and suddenly when you're out of the tunnel, there's this
yeah,
splash of light, and it's
You
yeah,
almost
imagine
blinding
light,
for a
yeah.
second.
yeah,
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 all
so
we imagine.
that is exactly what's going from first half to the
yeah.
second half, and then
Yeah,
you're
and I
just
think if it ends on that note, I feel like that would be like, oh my God. But like it has an hour after that to
yeah,
go.
Mhm.
yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, like I was interested in it. It's not like it totally lost me, but I was just like, okay,
Formally interesting, but
going in a
yeah.
way where, yeah, because to me, I was
But
like,
then the question arises. If the movie had actually ended that way, would it have been as satisfying? That's also a bigger
I
question.
don't know. Like, see,
No.
I'm not saying
I
I've
don't think it's
seen,
about I don't think it's about being satisfying or not. I
yeah,
think again, if I don't think like whatever perceptions we enter any film with, I don't think they have any merit because you have to
of
lose them
course,
all the
surrender
moment
Yeah,
the
yeah,
yourself
of
to
film
the
course.
starts.
Uh-huh.
feelings,
And
logic,
then you
realism,
judge the
whatever.
movie from how it starts. And this movie
Yeah.
starts with those flourishes, it's non-fiction docu like narrative, and then you go into this world. Okay. And
Hmm.
now, like, let's just say that
Hmm.
like basically the only semblance of narrative Kapadia's like two feature films
Hmm.
have is through the driving ethos of the self.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
here in All We Imagine Is Light, through the first half, you slowly see that not like decomposition, but you slowly see the watering down of the self. And what happens when the self turns against itself. And to come on terms with it, you have to like go away into this subliminal space
Yeah.
to bring those emotions out. And I think
Mm.
again, this is the last thing, the last time I mentioned this, because Amartya will has forever ruined this this for me. Again, the first half is much more about the fight
Socio-political. Is it? Are
within.
we back at
No,
that?
the
Are we back
Okay.
with
no,
that?
the other thing.
What is this?
The newer thing. But the first half is very much about the fight and the merits and the consequences of uh, thriving for the collective spirit, the collectivism, and the second half is
Okay.
very
Okay.
much
Okay.
about
Okay.
how the
Listen, I'm
personal
sorry. You
reckoning can
don't blame me
only
for
come
that.
how the personal reckoning can only come with the when you look
So I,
within
I
the
think
individual.
I think that's the other. Maybe I'm not. I hate to be like I really like these films, but I hate that I'm sounding like the dissenting voice here.
Sir, you
I don't
always do.
mean
It's
to.
fine. It's
No, but
always
Yeah,
I
fine.
that's
do. I
Always
that's
really
do.
like these films. Like it's in my list of the best, my favorite films of the year. So like it's not like I don't like it, right?
आया
It's
कितना है?
huh?
आया
That
कितना
doesn't
है
matter.
तुमको?
It's still high up. It's not like on the at the bottom edge of
No,
it.
but no, but the thing is, I agree with Dhruv in the sense. If this thing is that for me, the question is more that like for me, the second half works on paper, like in concept.
Mm-hmm.
Again, seeing it only
oh yeah.
once,
Yeah.
it really works in theory. Like you give me this idea, but my question is, on a first viewing at least, is that transition detrimental to your experience as a viewer watching the film? Because
I
for
think
me, in a sense, it was.
Hmm.
Maybe on a
it
second view, like
No,
Amartya is
but I
saying,
think
it
what
will get better.
I was
But
getting at the fact that what Aryan said, like I'm not crazy about this binary of city being this enclosed space and the
No,
rural
but
being this open space. But anyways, go ahead, Prakhar. You were saying.
that
it's
detriment
not.
of your viewing experience also comes back to supplement the conclusion of it. So because
Hmm.
you get a little it's something gets taken away from you because you're so
Hmm.
invested in the first half of it,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
then you're longing
Exactly.
I
for
was
something.
I
actually
Then
think
you
expecting
the
much
come
more
to
of.
that
detrimental aspect,
final
I
bit,
was
and then the
expecting
I
much
emotions
more
think
of a
you
start
would have
downer
coming
liked.
came
ending.
I
across.
think you would have liked the movie more if there was actually a scene of them coming back to the city and then
I
thoda
was
10
expecting
minutes. Yeah.
yeah.
The
So
thing
this
is,
is
No,
because
it
it's
no,
more
no.
came
I
cynical.
across as it
no,
came across as
I would not have.
detrimental to all of us on our
Uh,
first viewing, at least, is because I think this is what it is, that the fact that it never gets even hinted at during the film's first half. And
yeah.
then it felt all of a sudden, and I agree, I did not click with it even as
Yeah.
well on the first viewing. But then I think that's why Parvati's character was given like not equal screen
I mean,
time,
there's a
but enough
generational thing also
emphasis.
happening here, right? In terms of the
Yeah.
three characters being divided into three
Like you said,
different.
Aryan,
Mhm.
Parvati's
Three
character is
generations of
essentially the
women.
way station.
Yeah.
She is the way
Yeah,
station.
she
She's
is the way
connecting.
station
Mhm.
between paradise and hell, whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Understand.
That's why it worked for me like on the second viewing. And I think
I
for
look
most of
forward
us
to
it
this.
will on a repeat
But
viewing.
I look forward to like experiencing it hopefully as it displacing
And
my favorite film of the year, I guess. But
and
anyways.
which is why this time around I wasn't so bothered by the overt magic realism that happened with the
Hmm.
husband, with
The final element
the last
essentially.
final.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't
It's
so
hinted.
bothered by
Actually,
it.
it's hinted at even
It because
in the
it's hinted
beginning
at.
with
Oh,
the
Yeah,
doctor
yeah.
also in the
and
beginning,
Yeah,
right?
because
the
it's
No,
hinted.
again
patient. Sorry, patient
Yeah,
sees her
patient.
dead
Yeah.
Yeah.
husband.
the
And it's
switch
also
from Mumbai.
a quote unquote, which is why I call Afternoon Clouds as the precursor to All We
Yeah.
Imagine As Light,
Hmm.
because
Mm.
a version of that or a
Mhm.
semblance of kernel of thoughts of the second half of this movie is very much present in Afternoon
Yeah,
Clouds.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm. Absolutely.
So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I will not end on another Apichatpong reference, even though I've mentioned
No,
his
but
name.
a good ending note would be if somebody has just watched All We Imagine, then the next thing to watch is Afternoon Clouds.
Yeah.
Because,
yes,
yeah.
please
That's
do.
Nanpakal, right?
No, Afternoon Clouds is her
Afternoon Clouds
short.
is her short film. It's
Oh,
on
Her
YouTube.
right,
It's
short,
right.
like
yeah.
12 minutes long.
But
Nanpakal also you can
please
watch. It's
watch
very
Nanpakal.
nice.
Please watch
Oh, yeah.
Nanpakal. It's on
Yeah,
Because
Netflix.
I
please
was
watch
reminded
Nat
of that while
Yeah.
Yeah.
watching this one, rewatching
Did you
this.
sleep while watching this though?
Who?
I slept while watching Nanpakal.
Oh,
It's an afternoon.
right,
That's
right,
the whole
right.
title also, right? So
Isn't that the
Yeah,
whole
of course.
translation itself? Afternoon siesta
Yeah.
or whatever.
afternoon
Yeah.
siesta.
Mm.
Yeah.
I see. Sanjeev didn't warn me that it's like that type of film, so I went at 12:30 in the afternoon, and I was like, oh, nice. I've come to watch like a Jose Pellissieri movie, and I was like, oh, this
Should
is
have seen
that
you.
complimentary. Sorry, like sedentary in the way it's
You should have seen
moving.
Malai Kotte Valiban. Now that is utterly different.
Fine. I have that in my list of things to watch. Anyways, I think this discussion was lovely. I hope you guys had a lovely time listening to it, whoever has stuck around for the 1.5, 2 hours, because my battery is not lower than 10%. So I hope this episode comes across as what should it come across as, guys?
Articulate.
Articulate, hopefully enthusiastic about her film, and like
Balanced.
championing her.
Balanced.
Yeah, I think
Balanced.
I became the bad person very quickly here. But anyways, I didn't intend to. But
You have internalized the alienation, maybe that's
yes, I haven't. Yeah, absolutely. But I think this is the end of the episode. Thank you, Prakhar, for being here. I hope you enjoyed being
Thank you
on
for
the
inviting me.
panel.
We finally made it happen.
Yes. Oh, yeah. We had discussed. I think it's still in that episode where me and Varun were the only ones remaining. I think Amartya also dropped at the end. So we had like 5 people in the beginning, and then it sort of whittled it down to two, which is why it's 1 hour 20 minutes. And you guys got to not suffer one of the most nonsensical movies Varun has recommended me for that episode, which I tried to dissuade him. Rasputin, the Mad Monk. I was like,
Acha,
Varun,
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah, I
let's
remember.
select something which is half decent.
That
And
is
he's like,
bad.
no, no, no. And I'm like, fine, let's do Rasputin, the Mad Monk. It's one of the most boring movies I've ever seen.
I mean, I wish I was
But
there. I would have removed that instantly. But just Jovio.
anyways, so yeah, Prakhar was supposed to be in that episode, but anyways, I think this is the better episode to be a part of, just because we're
Yeah.
talking about
I was
better
more excited to be a
things.
part of this episode, but I was
Okay,
also
perfect.
late to this one. So
That's okay.
yeah.
We are
Oh,
used to
that's
late.
okay.
We are used to people being very late on podcasts. You are still on time, I think. One of them who's very late is here on time, surprisingly this time. So yeah, he knows who I'm talking about, I think. But yes, thank you
before
so
my
much.
afternoon sleep. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for listening to the episode. You can follow all these people, lovely people on Instagram, none of whose handles I have written down, and I'm being a horrible host, so I will write them all in the description.
Yes.
They can, whatever socials they have, I'll link also in the description if anyone's interested to talk to them and check out about other stuff. And I don't know what else we are doing this month. Sanjeet and Amartya have recorded a bunch of stuff, but Sanjeet is editing it, so best of luck. To like, I don't think you'll get the episode
Such
before the end.
confidence we have on our co-host, ladies and gentlemen.
Before the end of December, that's not coming out. I'll release this episode this week, because I think it's timely also, considering her film is sort of
Yeah.
slowly whittling out of cinemas.
Also, we
So
sincerely wish that this movie does get into the main category
Yeah,
of Best
yeah, yeah.
Picture.
Yeah.
I
I think
sincerely
it can.
hope.
It has a shot.
It can. It has
I
a shot.
think I pretty much think it can get like at least 2 nominations, mainly in like
Technical
screenplay and
departments?
cinematography. No. I
Yeah.
think cinematography definitely,
Cinematography.
because
Okay.
like the kind of traction this movie is getting, like I'm amazed at how many screens it's
Are
actually
you
getting
are
a
you
wide
going to
release.
watch it in the cinema, or did you go to watch it in
I've
the
already
cinema?
watched it twice. I might go again because it's opened like very wide, at least in New York.
It's opened
But
like wide. Oh wow.
yeah,
Okay.
it's
I thought
playing
it
in
was more
like
like an
Yeah.
art house.
no. It has like 5-6 shows, like even like
Interesting. Nice.
at AMC
Nice.
Regal also it's playing, so it's good.
Wow. Amazing. I'm very impressed.
So there is a
Good job,
Not at
New
chance.
York.
Alamo
No,
though,
so there is a
unfortunately.
chance.
Oh.
I
Yeah,
think
there
there's
is a
also.
chance.
I think there is the fact that Janus is distributing it,
Janus
right?
is there, no?
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's also the reason why. Which again boggles my goddamn mind. That out of everything, you would send Lapata.
Amir Khan has more
So,
money to
yeah, I was
publicize.
going to say, sir, by that Amir Khan also has got experience.
हाँ.
Yeah,
Sir,
I
उसका
think it's
experience 24 साल पहले का experience है. Now the
I
it
can
is very
Learn,
different.
no. ऐसे तो
back
मूवी भी
when
वो
the
24
news
साल
broke
पुरानी
out.
टाइप की लगती है. ठीक है, like it's
हाँ,
one
मूवी
of
का
those
ह्यूमर तो
early
वही है ना, 10
2000s
10
sort
10
of.
10
Yeah,
वो
yeah,
म्यूजिक
yeah.
चलता है पीछे पीछे.
It's
By the
fine.
way,
See,
Like
I
This is
understand
made-
the point.
yeah.
I understand the interpretation that, of course, the government wouldn't send a Payal Kapadia film to the jury, but I don't. I definitely think there's much more to that than that. And
Yeah.
it's coming from someone
I
who
don't even
doesn't
think
No,
it would have.
honestly, here's the thing.
Yeah.
first of all, the
This is a
movie.
final note. Sorry, I've already
Yeah.
ended the episode. So
The
yes.
movie came into the consideration quite late because Spirit got it quite late. Spirit
Yeah.
got the entire distribution thingy quite late anyway.
Yeah.
And
Which
by
was
the
a
time,
surprise in itself.
yeah, which was a surprise in and of itself. And if you watch the actual top 5 of it all, the overall top 5 is not that bad. You know,
For the movies that was submitted,
for
you're
the
saying?
movies that were submitted, it's
What
like
was
it had Thangalan, it had
this Mari
Thangalan.
Selvaraj movie also?
Yeah, I think it had. No, I don't
It
think
had
Marai was there.
Ulurukku.
Ulurokku, it had
Atom must have been there,
Thangalan.
right?
No, Atom wasn't there.
Really?
No,
Oh,
yeah.
there were two Malayalam films, no? There was
Ulurokku
Ulurukku
and
what is that?
Ulurokku, Thangalan, and another Malayalam movie. I still can't remember which Malayalam movie it is. And
No, well.
it had Shrikant, that Rajkumar Rao movie, which nobody watched, and
Mm.
and it had, and I think it had
Animal.
Lapata Ladies.
Actually, in the
Lapata
top
Ladies.
5 you're saying, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and it had Lapata Ladies.
Yeah.
So out of those 5, the fact that Lapata Ladies got selected, I think in itself is quote unquote an achievement. But again, I think one of the biggest cross people actually have, including Payal Kapadia, and I don't blame her at all, is the fact that somebody is saying that this movie is not Indian enough when your entire panel is goddamn male. So, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I thought you were supposed to be
Seriously.
the membership of that committee. Not the awards giving committee, but the male committee. Like
appearance.
the Purish
Sir,
Pradhan's committee is the
सर
one which you
मेरा पॉडकास्ट का जो पर्सनैलिटी है वो हमेशा मेरा टोटल पर्सनैलिटी नहीं है ना.
Hard to believe, but sure.
Yes, exactly. Anyways, I think on that note, tell me, Amartya and Aryan, whenever you are doing a episode on women talking, right? That's a running joke for whoever's not aware. But anyways, thank you so much, and khatam.